Chapter 9:13. Qin Wenyin calmly glanced at Xian Xing. No matter what I obtained, it's already mine. What do you want? Right now, Qin Wenyin couldn't be bothered to explain anything. No matter how he explained, these people wouldn't believe him. They would only believe what they wanted to know. Xian Xing walked forward and smiled. If you know what's good for you, it's best if you hand over the treasure you obtained. Maybe I can spare you. Many geniuses from the Twin Stars Alliance followed behind Xian Xing, all of them exuding tyrannical auras. Zi Qingxian and Jun Mingchen both had cold looks on their faces when they saw the scene. Ever since they entered the city of ancient emperors, they had always been under the control of others. Such a feeling was truly stifling. If they knew this would happen, they would have cultivated to the 8th level or 9th level of celestial phenomenon before entering the city of ancient emperors. At that time, these people would understand how powerful disciples from the heavenly talisman realm were. Xian Xing, what do you want? Only to see at this moment, Xiaoling Yue brought her people over. Similarly, the geniuses here were as common as the clouds, and it seemed as though they were about to confront the people from the Twin Stars Alliance. Xiaoling Yue, if he doesn't give an explanation for this matter, I'm afraid this matter won't be resolved so easily. Xian Xing glanced at Xiaoling Yue and her group. Is that so? He's a member of my Xiao Gate. Whatever he obtains is his own fortune. What right does your Xian Xing have to interfere? If you really want to touch him, my Xiao Gate is not afraid of your Twin Stars Alliance. We can even go to war. We can even start a war. Xiaoling Yue coldly spoke, her words causing those geniuses who entered later to scratch their heads in confusion. As expected of the number 6 ranker on the Immortal Ascension rankings, Xiaoling Yue actually wanted to start a war against the Twin Stars Alliance for the sake of Qin Wenyin? The geniuses from both sides stared at each other, the atmosphere extremely tense. Does your Xiao sect really want to start a war against my Twin Stars Alliance for the sake of him? Xian Xing heavily asked. Xiaoling Yue didn't hesitate. Very good. Xian Xing laughed uproariously. He stared at Qin Wenyin as he spoke. Brat, consider yourself lucky today. However, since we are in the city of ancient emperors, there's no need to worry about you escaping. I truly want to see how the Xiao sect will protect you. Let's go. As the sound of his voice faded, Xian Xing waved his hand and led the crowd away. Qin Wenyan's gaze was fixed on Xian Xing from the start to the end. His countenance was cold and he was already prepared for battle. However, this battle that should have erupted eventually calmed down because of Xiaoling Yue's interference. Qin Wenyin also suppressed the flames of anger in his heart. The others would gradually forget the oracular chant, but he didn't. He felt that he would be able to cultivate it. But now wasn't the time for him to fight. Before this, during his cultivation, Qin Wenyin felt an extremely profound feeling. The melody of the great Tao echoed in his mind, and he faintly sensed that this oracular chant might really be something left behind by ancient emperor. Also, there was a high possibility that this oracular chant contained the inheritance of ancient Emperor Yi's ultimate art, God's hand. However, Qin Wenyin could clearly sense the profoundness within. If he could cultivate it, his combat prowess would soar to another level. Now, he had to endure it for a little longer. The geniuses in the city of ancient emperors were as common as the clouds, and descendants of immortal kings and emperors could be found everywhere. However, he would eventually reveal his true glory. After a few more years, the people in the city of ancient emperors wouldn't treat him like this anymore. No one would dare to do this to him, and they would finally know what sort of character Qin Wenyin was. Many thanks. Qin Wenyin smiled at Xiaoling Yue. It's what I should do. Xiaoling Yue revealed a profound smile to Qin Wenyin. Since we are all members of the Xiao sect, we should share weal and woe together. Share weal and woe together? Qin Wenyin laughed in his heart, but he didn't say anything more. Let's go, let's return to the Xiao sect together. If there are still people who wish to comprehend the inscriptions, you can continue staying here. Xiaoling Yue was somewhat disappointed with this trip. She had wasted half a year's time and was trapped in the underground palace. During that period of time, the pressure in her heart was extremely great. It wasn't easy for her to exit the palace and even saw the oracular chant. However, she didn't manage to comprehend anything from it. To Xiao Lingyue, this was a great failure. There was no meaning in staying here any longer. She had no way to comprehend the divine inscriptions within the statue. She might as well leave. Qin Wenyan, do you still want to stay here to comprehend it? Xiao Lingyue asked. Nope, this oracular chant is too profound and I have no way to comprehend it. Let's go. Qin Wenyan smiled and stood up. Zi Qingxian and Jun Mingchen both glanced at Qin Wenyan only to hear Qin Wenyan speaking to them. There's an oracular chant behind the statue. You guys can give it a try but don't have too much hope. Zi Qingxian and Jun Mingchen nodded their heads as they walked towards the statue. Qin Wenyan then followed Xiao Lingyue out of the Emperor Palace. More and more experts were still gathering here. Not far away, a silhouette exuded a magnificence that exuded magnificence through the generations, not losing out to Xiao Lingyue at all. In fact, her aura even surpassed Xiao Lingyue's. This person was none other than a female. She was clad in a phoenix robe, yet her aura was incomparably cold. Her figure was exquisite, her skin as white as jade, and the expression on her face was like a 10,000-year-old glacier. Upon seeing this female, Xiao Lingyue's footsteps halted slightly. However, that female seemed to not have noticed Xiao Lingyue and directly walked past her. Such coldness caused people to not dare to look directly at her. Many gazes turned to this female, their gazes filled with admiration. These people were all descendants of immortal kings and emperors. Ordinary females wouldn't be able to enter their eyes. However, this female before them was so lofty that they couldn't even hope to reach her. If they could marry her, it would be sufficient. Their glory would be incomparable, and all the geniuses in the city of ancient emperors would be envious of them. That female also walked past Qin Wenyan. A unique aura gushed over, refreshing the heart and mind. This female is extraordinary. Even Xiao Lingyue halted. It should be her. Qin Wenyan silently mused. There were 3 most outstanding females in the city of ancient emperors. One of them was Xiao Lingyue, the other was Qing, whom he had been searching for. And the last female was the one with the highest ranking, ranked number 3 in the Immortal Ascension rankings. Her name was Namhuang Yunxi. This should be her. Xiao Lingyue paused for a moment, but when she saw that Namhuang Yunxi wasn't even looking at her, she couldn't help but have an unhappy expression on her face. She lifted her foot and continued on her way, returning to the Xiao sect. The group of them soared through the air with incredible speed. Beside Qin Wenyan, a figure appeared. It was none other than a genius of the Xiao sect, Li Yu, an expert ranked within the top 100 of the Immortal Ascension rankings. He stood beside Qin Wenyan and spoke in a low voice, "Many thanks." Qin Wenyan's countenance stiffened. He inclined his head and glanced at Li Yu. He naturally understood why Li Yu said thanks. It was just that from the time he brought them out of the underground palace until now, Li Yu was the first and only person to thank him. Smiling at Li Yu, Qin Wenyan nodded his head and didn't say anything more. After returning to the Xiao sect, the geniuses all returned to their own places. Qin Wenyan also returned to his courtyard and continued his cultivation. However, he didn't cultivate for long before he opened his eyes and spoke, "Come in." The sound of footsteps rang out as Xiao Lingyue's beautiful silhouette appeared. Xiao Lingyue had changed into a long green dress, exuding an incomparable charm and beauty akin to a fairy. She smiled sweetly at Qin Wenyan as she spoke, "Why? You've just returned and you want to continue cultivating? I know my cultivation base is too low, and I would be threatened by others from time to time. I naturally have to work harder." Qin Wenyan laughed. He was naturally referring to the things that had happened during this period of time. You don't have to be so calculative. Since you've joined the Xiao sect, I will naturally take care of you. In addition, I've already treated you as a friend. Xiao Lingyue smiled. Her figure and countenance caused Qin Wenyan to silently praise her in his heart. This Xiao Lingyue was truly a stunner. Being able to have such a beauty as a friend, I'm truly envious. Qin Wenyan laughed. Xiao Lingyue walked to a spot not far away from Qin Wenyan and actually sat down right in front of Qin Wenyan. Her beauty was so close that it was sufficient to cause the heartbeats of others to quicken. Your talent is extraordinary, and you also have a high attainment in the Tao of divine inscriptions. In the future, you would definitely have extraordinary accomplishments. Within the top 100 of the Immortal Ascension rankings, there would definitely be a place for you, or even higher. Xiaoling Yue smiled. Your comprehension ability is also extraordinary. Earlier in the Emperor Palace, none of us could comprehend the oracular chant and gradually forgot about it. Only you continued to comprehend it. You should have discovered something, right? This oracular chant is extraordinary. I've indeed comprehended it. Qin Wendian nodded. Right now, his heart was like a mirror. This was what Xiaoling Yue truly wanted to ask. Could this oracular chant have something to do with the ancient emperor's secret art? Xiaoling Yue asked. Maybe. Qin Wendian didn't deny anything. Among all the geniuses, only you could comprehend this oracular chant. This should have something to do with what you encountered in the underground palace earlier. Also, you were the one who unraveled the mysteries within the oracular chant. Most probably, this is the crux to why you were able to comprehend this oracular chant. Xiaoling Yue's beautiful eyes stared straight into Qin Wentian's eyes. Qin Wentian nodded. He didn't deny it. Xiaoling Yue's beautiful eyes flashed with a bright light. Her red lips were pursed together, causing the hearts of men to tremble. She then turned to Qin Wenyin and asked in a gentle voice, Qin Wenyin, can you teach me? This was a world-shocking art of the ancient emperor's secret art, an ultimate art that had been lost in time. Xiaoling Yue didn't mind using a honey trap just to obtain it. How could Qin Wenyin not see through her intentions? However, he still shook his head and replied, Sect leader, you are right. This oracular chant has a very high possibility that it has something to do with the underground palace. However, it's precisely because I unraveled the mysteries within the oracular chant that I was able to faintly sense the power contained within. However, I'm still unable to comprehend it. And just like what you said, I'm the only one who managed to unravel the mysteries within the oracular chant. Hence, this is the ending. Other than me, there's no one else who could comprehend the oracular chant at all. This is a certainty, and those who came after me wouldn't be able to do so as well. In addition, I have no way to teach you. Xiaoling Yue's countenance changed when she heard Qin Wentian's words. However, she instantly regained her composure and smiled. There's only the two of us. Why must you hide this from me? You should have obtained something in the underground palace, right? When Qin Wendian heard this, the last trace of hope he had for Xiaoling Yue was completely shattered. Before this, she had already asked Qin Wendian several times and Qin Wendian had clearly replied that it was merely a map. Now that she asked this question again, it was clear that in Xiaoling Yue's heart, her thoughts were the same as Xian Xing's. There was no difference between the two of them. If I say I didn't, would you believe me? Qin Wendian stared at Xiaoling Yue's beautiful eyes. He could see the smile in Xiaoling Yue's eyes slowly vanishing. Chapter 9:14. When Xiaoling Yue asked that question to Qin Wendian, it already indicated that she didn't trust Qin Wendian at all. Hence, Qin Wendian didn't reply directly, choosing to say, if I say I didn't, would you believe me? He knew that Xiaoling Yue wouldn't believe him. In that case, no matter what, the ending was already determined. Staring at Xiaoling Yue's countenance gradually turning cold, Qin Wendian felt a chill in his heart. These geniuses were very intelligent, but they were too intelligent. Xiaoling Yue deduced that the reason why he could comprehend the blood-colored runic inscriptions was related to the underground palace and was certain that he had obtained something. Because regardless of her or Xian Xing, neither of them felt that Qin Wendian had the talent to surpass all the geniuses trapped in the underground palace. Based on what qualifications did he have to comprehend the secret behind the blood-colored runic inscriptions? Qin Wendian, I treated you well, right? Xiaoling Yue asked. The smile on her face was extremely cold. What do you mean by treating me well? Qin Wendian saw the change in Xiaoling Yue's attitude. His tone also turned cold. When you were surrounded by the God Extermination Palace led by Ji Lanshan, it was me who asked you to join the Shao sect. Ji Lanshan took the initiative to retreat and no longer dared to find trouble with you. You brought us into the underground palace, causing many people to feel resentment towards you, but I didn't blame you at all. Even when Xian Xing wanted to deal with you, I was the one who stopped him. Is all of this still not enough? Xiao Lingyue spoke. I was surrounded by Ji Lanshan, you've already seen it for yourself. He couldn't do anything to me at all. Regardless of whether I joined the Xiao sect or not, I have no fear of Ji Lanshan. You asked me to join because you needed my divine inscriptions. You wanted me to bring you to the Emperor Palace, and I did it within half a year. Not only did I rescue all of you from the underground palace, I even brought you into the depths of the Emperor Palace. Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with sharpness as he slowly spoke, because in the Emperor Palace, you didn't obtain anything. This is why you would say such words. If you obtained an ancient emperor treasure or an inheritance, would you still say such words? If before you entered the Emperor Palace and someone told you that I could bring you in within half a year, would you reject? I'm afraid you'll be deeply grateful. If you gain something, it's your own wisdom. If you don't gain anything, you shift all the blame to me, Qin Wenyan. Is this the way of a sect leader? Qin Wenyan said coldly. As for Xian Xing, is there any difference between the reason why Xian Xing wants to deal with me and what sovereign wants to do now? Xiao Lingyue stared at Qin Wenyan. After which, she smiled and stood up. Qin Wenyan, you're very good. I'll give you some time to consider it. With that, she flicked her sleeves and left the place. Qin Wenyan sent Xiao Lingyue off with his gaze. His countenance was as calm as ever, with no changes at all. He closed his eyes and continued his cultivation, comprehending the incomparably mystical energy. Being in the city of ancient emperors, he understood that raising his strength as soon as possible was the most important thing. The courtyard was incomparably quiet. Qin Wenyan had no distractions in his heart until Zi Qingxian and Jun Mingchen came back to look for him. When he saw Jun Mingchen walking over, his face was filled with rage. Qin Wenyan smiled at him. What's wrong? Senior brother, they're monitoring us. Jun Mingchen angrily spoke. That's normal. Qin Wenyan laughed. For the next period of time, I intend to go into closed-door seclusion and cultivate here in this courtyard. You guys should also work hard in your cultivation as well. Before the Xiao sect makes their move against us, let them monitor us. Don't clash with them. Jun Mingchen started. Aren't we going to leave the Xiao sect directly? Right now, it's no longer a situation where we can leave just because we want to. Xiao Lingyue thinks that I've obtained something she wanted, the ancient inheritance. But in truth, that's something that needs to be comprehended by oneself. She couldn't comprehend it herself, so she assumed that I've obtained some other treasures. There's no way for her to explain this. For a period of time, I'll be under their surveillance and my movements will be restricted. Hence, I might as well go into closed-door seclusion. Qin Wenyan smiled. With regards to you guys, their restrictions shouldn't be too strict. As long as I don't leave, I don't know when they would act against us. I understand. Before they act, we just have to endure and not clash with them. We'll do our best to delay and raise our strength. Jun Mingchen spoke. Yeah, Mingchen, I know it's hard on you. You have an impulsive personality, but in the city of ancient emperors, we have no choice but to endure. Qin Wenyan spoke. Don't worry, senior brother, I understand. I can only blame myself for being too weak. If I was at the 9th level of celestial phenomenon, why would I fear them? We can just fight. Jun Mingchen angrily spoke. Okay, let's go and cultivate. Zi Qingxian could understand Qin Wentian's urgency to raise his strength. She was very clear what sort of character Qin Wenyan was. If one truly angered him, he would dare to do anything. Even in front of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor, his arrogance towered up into the heavens. But given his personality, he could also endure things that ordinary people couldn't. Right now, Qin Wenyan was most definitely in desperate need of time. Senior brother, you should cultivate well. We will be leaving too. Jun Mingchen and Zi Qingxian left. Qin Wenyan drew in a deep breath and entered a meditative state once more. Half a month later, Xiao Lingyue came to look for Qin Wenyan again. This time around, she directly asked, "Have you made up your mind?" Qin Wenin stared at Xiao Lingyue, smiling as he shook his head. "I've already told you before. If you want to cultivate the oracular chant within the blood-colored runes, you have to comprehend the divine inscriptions in the underground palace first. However, it's impossible for you to do so. Even if I wanted to teach you, it's impossible for me to do so." Xiao Lingyue frowned as she coldly spoke. "Qin Wenin, I've already given you enough face." "Many thanks." Qin Wenin smiled. Xiao Lingyue didn't say anything more. She turned and departed, leaving behind an icy glare. In the next few months, Xiao Lingyue came to visit several times. Every time she visited, her actions were extremely direct and her attitude grew colder and colder. Xiao Lingyue also discovered that Qin Wenin seemed to be extremely patient. He didn't say that he wanted to leave the Xiao sect and just quietly stayed in his courtyard to cultivate, as though nothing had happened. As for Qin Wentian's two companions, they would sometimes cultivate in the Xiao sect, and sometimes they would leave the city of ancient emperors to temper themselves. She had sent people from the Xiao sect to monitor them, but they didn't seem to have any intentions of escaping. It seemed as though they were planning on wasting time with her. Qin Wenin and his companions knew their own limits and knew that it was impossible for them to forcefully leave the Xiao sect. They were merely trying to infuriate her. Finally, Xiao Lingyue's patience reached its limit. Today, experts from the Xiao sect came to Qin Wentian's courtyard and directly barged in. However, Xiao Lingyue wasn't there. The person in the lead was none other than the second strongest expert of the Xiao sect, Greedwolf. The auras of this group were extremely terrifying. Their might bore down on Qin Wenin. This was especially so for Greedwolf. His countenance was ice-cold, filled with killing intent. Qin Wenin opened his eyes and stared at him only to hear Greedwolf coldly speaking. "Qin Wenin, you brought Lingyue into the underground palace and were trapped there for half a year. Lingyue still protected you, or you would have long since fallen into the hands of Xian Xing. In fact, even when people from the Twin Stars Alliance came to ask for you, Lingyue still refused to hand you over. Lingyue's heart is kind. She tolerated you time and time again. I can't be bothered to waste my breath on you. Within 7 days, if you don't hand over the secret manual, I will expel you from the Xiao sect. If you aren't a disciple of the Xiao sect, don't blame us for being impolite to you." After speaking, Greedwolf blasted out with his palm. "Let's go." Greedwolf waved his hands. The other experts of the Xiao sect all stomped on the ground as the sounds of destruction rang out. Their eyes coldly stared at Qin Wenin as they departed together. After Greedwolf and the others left, Jun Mingchen and Zi Qingxian came over. Upon seeing Qin Wenin sitting there, Jun Mingchen couldn't help but ask, "Senior brother Qin, they are truly too impudent." Qin Wentian's countenance was as calm as ever. He glanced at Jun Mingchen as he smiled. 7 days? Just bear with it for a few more days before we leave the Xiao sect. Okay, senior brother. I will cultivate here and accompany you. Jun Mingchen nodded. Qin Wenin felt warmth in his heart as he smiled and nodded his head. Zi Qingxian also stayed behind, cultivating in this dilapidated place. 5 days later, a violent aura gushed forth, terrifying to the extreme. Qin Wenin and Zi Qingxian stood at the side, only to see Jun Mingchen radiating boundless astral light as his constellation appeared. Rumbling sounds rang out from his body as an ancient aura gushed forth, akin to a primordial beast. The rumbling sounds continued unceasingly, echoing far and wide. To think that Mingchen would catch up to us so soon. I'm really happy for him. A smile appeared in Qin Wentian's eyes. He was very happy. This was the only thing that could make him feel carefree during this period of time. Emichim, Zi Qingxian smiled and nodded. After that, she glanced at Qin Wenin, feeling a sense of inferiority in her heart. The first time they met, her cultivation base was the highest. But now, Qin Wenin and Jun Mingchen were both at the same level as her. In terms of combat prowess, she would be the weakest. The two beside her were both supreme geniuses. If she was beside them, she would only dim in comparison. The sound of air breaking rang out. Many experts of the Xiao sect turned their gazes over. Upon seeing that it was Jun Mingchen who broke through, many of them crossed their arms in front of their chests as they laughed coldly. A 6th-level ascendant, after breaking through, he would only be at the 7th level. In the Shao sect, this level of cultivation truly couldn't be considered anything. There are still 2 more days for you to consider. Don't be so shameless when we give you face. An expert from the Shao sect glanced over as he spoke. Among the crowd, Li Yu silently watched everything. He also saw Xiao Lingyue, who was far away, yet his interest was waning. His silhouette flickered as he appeared before Xiao Lingyue and called out, "Lingyue, what's the matter?" Xiao Lingyue stared at Li Yu as she asked, "I've accompanied you for quite some time in the Shao sect, and I'm quite happy with it. But now, I wish to roam the city of ancient emperors alone. From now on, I will no longer be part of the Shao sect. Take care." Li Yu spoke to Xiao Lingyue, his words causing Xiao Lingyue's countenance to change. "Li Yu, the Shao sect needs you." The Shao sect is one of the top 3 powers in the city of ancient emperors. You are also ranked number 6 in the Immortal Ascension rankings. Having one more wouldn't make a difference. Farewell. Li Yu bowed slightly, after which, his silhouette flickered as he directly departed. Xiao Lingyue stared at Li Yu's back as an unnatural expression appeared on her face. Li Yu actually left the Shao sect at this moment? Was he unhappy with her? Chapter 9:15. Li Yu's departure caused Xiao Lingyue to be in an extremely bad mood. Although the Shao sect was powerful, it was also because there were many geniuses in the city of ancient emperors. Li Yu, as a genius ranked within the top 100 of the Immortal Ascension rankings, was sufficient to establish a power of his own. Yet he chose to follow her. He was an extremely important person to her. Because of a genius like Li Yu, she, Xiao Lingyue, was able to make the Shao sect stronger. But now, Li Yu had actually left. From Li Yu's eyes, Xiao Lingyue could see a trace of disappointment. With regards to Li Yu's personality, she understood him a little. He was a cheerful and optimistic person, carefree. Although he was somewhat frivolous, he was an upright person. He joined the Shao sect purely because of her, Xiao Lingyue's charm. Now that he left, it was also because her charm no longer existed in his heart. Xiao Lingyue was an intelligent person. Recently, she had only done one thing, and that was to target Qin Wenyan. Li Yu might have left because he was unhappy with her. However, Xiao Lingyue didn't feel that she had done anything wrong. She had to obtain the inheritance of ancient emperor Yi no matter what. If she could obtain the ultimate art, God's hand, it wouldn't merely be a temporary boost to her strength. It would accompany her for the rest of her life, and her combat prowess would forever be a step ahead of others. At this moment, in the cultivation ground of Qin Wentian's courtyard, Jun Mingchen opened his eyes as sharpness gleamed within. Qin Wenyan smiled. "Mingchen, congratulations." Jun Mingchen stretched his body, feeling extremely carefree. He then replied, "Still not enough, I'm only at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon. Let's take it step by step. Cultivation isn't something that can be accomplished in a single leap. Right now, the 3 of us are already at the same level." Qin Wenyan laughed. After that, he spoke, "Let's go out for a walk." Go out for a walk? Zi Qingxian and Jun Mingchen both turned their gazes to Qin Wenyan. There were only 2 days left to the deadline given by the Shao sect. If Qin Wenyan wanted to go out for a walk now, it wouldn't be so simple. "It's time to leave." Qin Wenyan transmitted his voice to the 2 of them. The 2 of them didn't say anything, they merely exchanged glances and nodded in their hearts. "Let's go." Qin Wenyan turned and stepped into the air, heading towards the exit of the Shao clan. However, at this moment, a heaven chosen of the Shao clan appeared in front of Qin Wenyan, blocking his path. "Where are you going?" Qin Wenyan frowned slightly and said, "What? Do I lose my freedom after joining the Shao clan? Can't I even go out to relax? In 2 days it will be the deadline. It won't be too late to go out then." That person shouted coldly. Many experts of the Shao clan flew into the sky to stop Qin Wenyan. Even Xian Xing of the Twin Stars Alliance wants to capture him. It's rumored that back then, It was precisely because of him that they were able to enter the Emperor Palace. There were also people who heard stories about Qin Wenyin. Evidently, in the city of ancient emperors, Qin Wenyin was quite famous as well. There were countless geniuses in the city of ancient emperors, and many of them were paying attention to the situation here. And at this moment, Qin Wenyin and the other two suddenly halted their steps, no longer moving forward. Xiao Lingyue and the others halted as well, staring at the situation ahead. Amichem? At this moment, Xiao Lingyue saw a group of figures appearing from afar. Her beautiful eyes flashed with interest. It was actually people she was familiar with. The first time she met Qin Wenyin was being pursued by these people. At this moment, the ones who appeared before Qin Wenyin and the others were none other than Ji Lanshan and the other experts from the God Extermination Palace. Truly, enemies often cross paths. Ji Lanshan stood in the air, coldly staring at Qin Wenyin and the other two. After which, he coldly laughed. What a coincidence! I heard that the people of the Twin Stars Alliance are here to capture you. Also, the people of the Shao sect don't seem to be very fond of you. What does that have to do with you? Qin Wenyin asked. You can't have forgotten what happened back then so quickly, right? Ji Lanshan spoke with cold arrogance. His gaze turned to Xiao Lingyue as he spoke. Sect leader Xiao, I have some grudges I want to settle with him. Sect leader Xiao, you won't interfere, right? Xiao Lingyue coldly laughed. She stepped forward, sandwiching Qin Wenyin and the other two in the middle. Xiao Lingyue then spoke. Qin Wenyin doesn't seem to want to admit that he received the protection of the Shao sect. Who would have thought that he would meet you here so quickly, Ji Lanshan? In that case, I really want to ask Qin Wenyin, what is your attitude now? I don't understand what sect leader means. Qin Wenyin calmly replied. Are you pretending to be dumb? Greedwolf coldly snorted. The Shao sect protected your safety and protected your life, yet you actually enjoyed the benefits alone, ignoring the benefits of the Shao sect. Right now, let me ask you again. Do you agree to what Lingyue said? What if I say no? Qin Wenyin replied. In that case, my Shao sect will expel you from our sect. You aren't worthy to be a disciple of our Shao sect. Your life and death has nothing to do with our Shao sect. Xiao Lingyue coldly spoke. It was as though she wanted to use this opportunity to deal a heavy blow to Qin Wenyin. If he continued to be obstinate, she believed that with so many experts from the God Extermination Palace, they wouldn't give him any more chances. It was as though they were cooperating with Xiao Lingyue's words. The experts from the God Extermination Palace all stepped out, directly surrounding Qin Wenyin and the two others. Ji Lanshan even released his terrifying constellation, causing 1,000 talismans to glow resplendently. Qin Wenyin coldly laughed as he stared at Xiao Lingyue. What a good Shao sect. For the sake of seizing the treasures of the members of your sect, you can be said to be unscrupulous. As for the so-called expulsion, when have I, Qin Wenyin, cared? From now onwards, I, Qin Wenyin, and the two others no longer have any relationship with the Shao sect. Impudent. A fearsome aura gushed forth from Greedwolf, yet Xiao Lingyue waved her hands. I want to see how long you can be arrogant for. Qin Wenyin. Ji Lanshan roared. Back then you seized the interspatial rings of a disciple of my God Extermination Palace and only managed to escape with the protection of the Shao sect. Have you ever thought that there would be a day like this? Do you have any face? A mere character ranked below 300th in the Immortal Ascension rankings? You, Ji Lanshan, aren't qualified to speak to me in this manner. You are 2 levels higher than me, yet you couldn't do anything to me back then. Let alone today, in front of me, you don't even have the qualifications to be called a Heaven's Chosen. The so-called descendant of an immortal emperor is nothing but a joke. Qin Wenyin arrogantly spoke. At this moment, he was completely different from the low profile he was when he was in the Shao sect. His arrogance towered up into the sky, causing the eyes of the geniuses in the surroundings to gleam with a divine light. What qualifications did this fellow have exactly? He actually dared to be so disrespectful to the experts of the Shao sect and even wanted to oppose Ji Lanshan? Boasting shamelessly. Do you think you still have a chance to inscribe divine inscriptions today? Ji Lanshan's Thousand Talismans constellation erupted forth violently. At the same time, he circulated the Thousand Talismans immortal tome, causing an unexcelled might to radiate from him. There's no need for me to inscribe divine inscriptions. Qin Wendian laughed. He stepped out and howled in a frenzy. Thunderous rumbling sounds echoed out as a resplendent light illuminated the sky. His entire body shone with fiend god light as his body expanded to a size of 10 meters, resembling a divinity unexcelled in the world. It doesn't mean that one's strength is strong. An expert from the God Extermination Palace coldly snorted. After that, the experts from the God Extermination Palace all unleashed their constellations, wanting to suppress Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin similarly released his constellation as violet gold light flashed. He stretched out his palms and in an instant, boundless runic light circulated around his palms. At this instant, Qin Wenyan's palms turned violet gold in color, exuding an unexcelled might. Qin Wenyin chanted a few incantations as his entire body glowed with a brilliant light, as though he was undergoing a transformation. His palms became even more resplendent, as though they were no longer Qin Wenyan's palms, but the hands of God instead. Xiaoling Yue's eyes gleamed with sharpness when she saw this scene. She stared fixedly at Qin Wenyan's transformed palms. Qin Wenyan's entire body radiated a divine glow. At this moment, an expert from the God Extermination Palace had already rushed out, slashing out a saber strike at Qin Wenyin. However, Qin Wenyin merely lifted his palms and blasted out. That gigantic palm that resembled God's hand blasted out, directly shattering the saber light. A palm imprint blasted out with enough power to pluck down the stars, sun and moon. With a thunderous boom, that expert from the God Extermination Palace had all his defenses destroyed. His body suffered a crushing blow as he was directly flung through the air. God's hand doesn't refer to single-target attacks. Rather, it refers to using God's hand to unleash all sorts of attacks. At this moment, Xiaoling Yue's gaze couldn't leave Qin Wenyan's palm. The light was still as bright as ever, exuding a terrifying might. Chapter 9:16. He really managed to cultivate it and obtained the secret art of ancient Emperor Yi. Xiaoling Yue's countenance was exceptionally cold as she stared at Qin Wenyin. Unknowingly, Qin Wenyin had actually succeeded in cultivating God's hand. This was a legendary innate technique that had been lost in the immortal realms. He must have obtained the cultivation art of God's hand in the underground palace and had been hiding it from her. Bastard, what a crafty fellow! What a waste of my effort to protect him! The more Xiaoling Yue thought about it, the more furious she felt. Killing intent flashed in her eyes. This is God's hand? Greedwolf, who was beside Xiaoling Yue, also had a sharp expression on his face. If this was truly the lost secret art of an ancient emperor, it would definitely be sufficient to cause a huge storm. In the city of ancient emperors, the appearance of the ruins of ancient Emperor Yi was already known to everyone. In fact, there were many experts who personally went to the ruins, but none of them managed to comprehend the power of the blood talismans. And right now, when the people in the surroundings saw the might Qin Wenyin unleashed, their countenances all turned solemn as they stared ahead. It's rumored that ancient Emperor Yi had a heaven-shaking secret art known as God's Hand. Back then, ancient Emperor Yi relied on his towering strength and God's hand to conquer the immortal realms, becoming an ancient emperor. The experts in the surroundings murmured. Even for the experts from the God Extermination Palace and Ji Lanshan who were surrounding Qin Wenyin, their countenances stiffened as they stared ahead. What innate technique is this? Ji Lanshan stared at Qin Wenyan's transformed palm as he asked. Try it and you will know. Qin Wenyan's palm imprint shone with a terrifying violet gold light. The energy from his constellation also flowed unceasingly into the palm imprint as a fearsome violet gold long spear manifested. A pair of wind rock wings appeared behind Qin Wenyan's back, making him seem like a descendant of a divinity, exuding the might of a monarch. Is this the power of God's hand? It can unleash any kind of energy. That long spear that appeared seems to be a part of God's hand as well. Xiao Lingyue saw that the long spear was formed from boundless runic light. Terrifying runes flowed unceasingly from Qin Wentian's palm imprint into the long spear, causing runes to flow unceasingly on its surface. At this moment, there was a faint, terrifying roar coming out of Qin Wentian's body. All the power in his body seemed to have been stimulated to its strongest state. Coupled with the amplification from the battle art, he was in the strongest state of excitement. It was even somewhat similar to the state he was in when he used the celestial vanquishing sword. The consumption had reached a terrifying level, and his aura had climbed to its peak state. This was the result of the oracular chant of God's hand. In addition, Qin Wenyan knew that this wasn't the complete version of God's hand, it was merely the introductory level. If not, given his cultivation base at the celestial phenomenon realm, how would he be able to unleash the true power of God's hand? That was a lost secret art used by ancient emperors to conquer the world. Even the introductory level was incomparably complicated and contained boundless might. In addition, this God's hand wasn't something Qin Wenyan could unleash at any time. He needed to condense a large amount of divine energy in advance, just like how he condensed the gigantic palm imprint in the underground palace. From the start till the end, Qin Wenyan had never lied to Xiao Lingyue. Even if he wanted to teach her, it was impossible for Xiao Lingyue to cultivate God's hand. For those who couldn't unravel the mysteries of the underground palace, it was impossible for them to cultivate God's hand. I have to end this as fast as possible. Qin Wenyan silently mused. In such a state, even if he had multiple palaces, he wouldn't be able to last long. He didn't know if he would be able to wield this technique after stepping into the 9th level of celestial phenomenon. However, Qin Wenyan also understood that if he wanted to wield this technique, he had to first cultivate the spirit refinement method to a certain level. Bzz. A raging wind gusted by. Qin Wentian's body was like a true great rock in the wind, as fast as golden lightning. In just an instant, he dashed towards a genius from the God Extermination Palace. This person was none other than the crowned expert he met before. It was precisely this person's greed that caused him to form a grudge with the God Extermination Palace. The countenance of that crowned expert drastically changed. Back then he was already unable to defeat Qin Wenyan, let alone now that Qin Wenyan has cultivated an even more terrifying strength. That crowned expert instantly retreated with explosive speed, yet he only saw Qin Wentian's long spear stabbing out explosively, wanting to penetrate through space. Numerous beams of golden light shot out as a golden spear light shot out from the center of the light, directly piercing through space. That crowned expert roared in rage as a resounding boom echoed out. That crowned expert was forced back as an immortal ranked weapon appeared before him, blocking that attack. However, he didn't feel complacent at all. There was only disappointment on his face. He had used an immortal ranked weapon. This was an extremely shameful thing to do in the city of ancient emperors. Numerous gazes turned to him. That crowned expert only felt a burning sensation on his face. After which, he only heard Qin Wenyan speaking, "Are you even worthy of being called a heaven's chosen? You are nothing but trash. You can only bully low-level newbies who just entered the city of ancient emperors." The God Extermination Palace is nothing but a bunch of good-for-nothings. Ji Lanshan unleashed his 1,000 Talismans immortal art to its strongest state. His 1,000 Talismans sword appeared as he stepped out, rushing towards Qin Wenyan. As the Palace Lord of the God Extermination Palace, an expert on the Immortal Ascension rankings, he, Ji Lanshan, had to defeat Qin Wenyan no matter what. Qin Wenyan similarly stared at Ji Lanshan. The wings behind him flickered as he directly rushed towards his opponent. Ji Lanshan roared in rage. The 1,000 Talisman sword that seemed capable of annihilating the heavens and earth slashed down from the sky, radiating boundless runic light. However, at the same time, God's hand blasted out with a violet gold long spear. Both attacks contained towering runic light as they directly collided together. Boundless runic inscriptions clashed against each other as a terrifying halo of light tore apart the sky. Qin Wentian's God's hand abruptly blasted out as the violet gold long spear actually broke through the air. There seemed to be terrifying runic light revolving around the long spear as it slashed towards the Thousand Talismans constellation above Jilanshan. The Thousand Talismans sword was destroyed, the hearts of the crowd pounded. Qin Wenin was merely a 7th-level ascendant, yet he could actually unleash such a terrifying attack when using God's hand? How tyrannical was the ultimate art of ancient Emperor Yi exactly? Inclining their heads, everyone only saw that incomparably terrifying long spear shrouded in boundless runic light directly piercing into the Thousand Talismans constellation in the air. In just an instant, that terrifying halo of light seemed to have suppressed the Thousand Talismans constellation, causing Ji Lanshan to howl in rage, wanting to use the power of his constellation to break it apart. At this moment, Qin Wentian's gigantic body that resembled a wind rock descended. God's hand directly blasted out as a star-seizing palm imprint appeared, containing an apocalyptic might. This attack was extremely similar to the star-seizing palm that Qin Wentian had cultivated in the past. However, it seemed to have undergone many evolutions and was much stronger than before. When the palm imprint blasted out, it felt as though it could really pluck down the sun, moon, and stars, annihilating everything. That godlike runic light seemed to be able to shatter any energy. Boundless light erupted from Jilanshan. He roared in rage as runic light flowed around him. Both of his hands pierced through the heavens and earth as an ancient cauldron appeared, destroying all attacks. The might of the countless runic inscriptions shook the heavens. There was nothing that could shake it. Bang! An earth-shaking attack shook the entire space. That terrifying palm imprint shattered the ancient cauldron, but the aftershock waves still lingered in the air. The terrifying palm imprint blasted downwards, slamming into Jilanshan. Jilanshan explosively retreated, but he still had no way to evade the attack of the palm imprint. With a piercing sound, he coughed out fresh blood that danced in the air. Borrowing the force from the palm imprint, his speed of retreat increased, and in an instant he was already far away, dissipating a portion of the destructive force. The crowd was in a daze. Qin Wenin borrowed the power of God's hand and actually defeated an expert on the Immortal Ascension rankings, Jilanshan. God's hand, how powerful! The spectators were no longer spectators. They were truly stunned by the ultimate art of ancient Emperor Yi that Qin Wenin had unleashed. The geniuses of the city of ancient emperors were all extraordinary characters. This Jilanshan was an expert on the Immortal Ascension rankings, and although he was ranked in the 300s, he wasn't someone who could jump levels to fight. However, not only did Qin Wenin jump levels to defeat him, he even jumped 2 levels. How tyrannical was the power of God's hand exactly? Jilanshan, you won't be able to do it. I have no deep grudge with the God Extermination Palace. It was the people from your God Extermination Palace who bullied us 3 when we first entered the city of ancient emperors, wanting to snatch our interspatial rings. This was why I retaliated. After that, you guys continued to provoke me. I, Qin Wenin, will warn you now that if you guys still refuse to give up, I don't care if you are the descendant of an emperor or a disciple of a king. I will show no mercy. Qin Wentian roared in rage. Staring at the high-spirited Qin Wenin, Xiao Lingyue could faintly sense that Qin Wenin had changed into a different person. From the earlier Qin Wenin to the current Qin Wenin who exuded magnificence through the generations, he seemed to have undergone a transformation. Were they really the same person? Capture him. Xiao Lingyue commanded. There was no need for her to say anything more. The experts of the Xiao sect had already surrounded Qin Wenin. Even though Qin Wenin was extremely powerful now, they still had to capture him. Qin Wenin was the one who controlled God's hand. Upon seeing the experts of the Xiao sect nearing, Qin Wenin roared in rage. Before this, the Xiao sect leader wanted to force me to leave the Xiao sect when you saw the experts from the God Extermination Palace wanting to deal with me. Now that I'm no longer a disciple of the Xiao sect, does the Xiao sect leader want to kill me and seize my treasures? Mph. Xiao Lingyue coldly snorted, ignoring Qin Wenin. Xiao Lingyue, ever since the first time you invited me to join the Xiao sect, you've done everything in your power to scheme against me. What's laughable is that I, Qin Wenin, have always been honest and frank. Although I've always been on guard against you, my words have never been false. What's laughable is that you've never believed me. It's not that I'm mocking you, but even if the secret art of God's hand was placed in front of you and I told you how to cultivate it, you wouldn't be able to do so. Qin Wendian spoke in a clear voice, as though he wasn't just speaking to Xiaoling Yue. He was speaking to everyone present as well. The secret art of ancient Emperor Yi has been lost for thousands of years. You guys only know how powerful it is, but you have no idea how difficult it is to cultivate. If it's really so easy to comprehend, how can it be called a world-shaking secret art? Many of you are the descendants of immortal kings and emperors. How could you not know how difficult it is to cultivate? The difficulty of cultivating God's hand, think about it yourself. Are you saying that there's no one in the city of ancient emperors who can surpass you in terms of talent? Just when everyone was pondering over Qin Wentian's words, a voice drifted over from afar. It was none other than Xian Xing from the Twin Stars Alliance. At the very least, I'm much stronger compared to you, Xian Xing. Both of us were trapped in the underground palace, and you were waiting for death there, thinking of ways to deal with me. Yet, I was there comprehending the secrets of the divine inscriptions, and eventually, I managed to unravel them and bring everyone away. It's a fact that you, Xian Xing, don't want to admit it. Qin Wentian coldly spoke. To cultivate God's hand, one must first have an extremely high level of attainment in the Tao of divine inscriptions. If one can't even compare to Xian Xing, there's basically no need for such extravagant hopes. When Xian Xing was in the underground palace, he couldn't even comprehend a single bit of the secrets of God's hand. Chapter 9:17. Qin Wentian's voice reverberated through the air, causing the hearts of everyone to tremble when they heard it. Qin Wenyan wasn't the only one who entered the underground palace. At that time, Xian Xing, Xiaoling Yue, and the other geniuses had all entered together with him. However, only Qin Wenyan managed to cultivate God's hand. The others didn't manage to do so at all. In the Emperor Palace, there were inscriptions left behind for everyone to cultivate. This wasn't an exception for Qin Wenyan. Also, Qin Wentian's words should be true. Since Xian Xing and the others were present, their lies were easily exposed. Evidently, Qin Wenyan was the one who brought them out of the underground palace. God's hand is so powerful to such an extent, the difficulty of cultivating it must be exceedingly high. Maybe, Qin Wenyan was able to cultivate it because of his shocking talent. Someone mused. After this battle, they wondered if his name would appear on the Immortal Ascension rankings. Although Qin Wenyan had borrowed the power of God's hand was something that belonged to Qin Wenyan himself. It was highly possible for him to be ranked on the Immortal Ascension rankings. It was just that if Qin Wenyan was to be ranked on the Immortal Ascension rankings, where would he be ranked? You are truly arrogant to the extreme. Xian Xing's aura turned extremely cold after being insulted. The experts of the Twin Stars Alliance arrived, surrounding Qin Wenyan and the others. In this case, although Qin Wenyan managed to repel the experts of the God Extermination Palace led by Ji Lanshan, the enemies before him were even more terrifying. Xiaoling Yue led the experts of the Xiao sect, while Xian Xing led the experts of the Twin Stars Alliance. No matter how powerful God's hand was, Qin Wenyan was only at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon. He wouldn't be able to overturn the heavens. At this moment, the spectators couldn't help but to think that if Qin Wenyan had the cultivation base of Xian Xing and Xiaoling Yue at the 9th level of celestial phenomenon, in addition to the power of God's hand, would he be able to sweep through everything? Given the strength of the God's hand, it would truly be very terrifying. Upon seeing so many powerful enemies staring at him, Qin Wentian's body emitted terrifying rumbling sounds as he expanded once again. His God's hand grew larger as well, but the boundless runic light was still as terrifying as before. Do you plan to come at me together, or one by one? Qin Wentian said proudly, his fighting spirit soaring, as if he was ready to fight. I have no interest in fighting against you. Xian Xing coldly spoke. He directly waved his hands. Capture him. Don't take his life. Xiaoling Yue also spoke. Momentarily, the experts from both sides stepped forward, wanting to capture Qin Wendian on the spot. Qin Wendian coldly laughed. A raging wind gusted by as he directly soared up into the air. As he soared up, over 10 experts followed behind him. A destructive might that could destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth swept through this space. It was too terrifying. However, at this moment, a low-sounding voice rang out from Qin Wendian's mouth. It sounded extremely ancient, causing a raging wind to kick up in the air. Chant of the demonic divinities, ancient will connecting to the heavens, gathering demonic chi from the 8 directions, devouring demonic energy from the starry skies. A surge of demonic chi engulfed the heavens and earth. Qin Wendian's entire body was brimming with demonic chi. That gigantic body of his seemed to be seething with demonic blood, emitting splashing sounds. The eyes of those experts who soared up together with him gleamed with sharpness as they stared at Qin Wendian's silhouette. What a powerful demonic chi! The hearts of everyone trembled. In the air, the terrifying shadow of a great rock appeared, exuding a supreme demonic might. Summon the demonic divinities of the 8 directions, I shall transform into a demon. An ancient chant rang out unceasingly from Qin Wendian's mouth, as though there really was a surge of energy from the starry skies descending. Bzzz. A raging wind gusted as the heavens and earth changed color. Abruptly, darkness appeared in the sky, as though a gigantic creature was blotting out the sun. That was a great rock, incomparably demonic. Its body exuded the aura of a king, like a great sage among rocks. The wings of the great rock spread out, blocking out the sunlight. The hearts of the crowd trembled as they inclined their heads and stared at the sky. What was this? Demonic chi gushed downwards, accompanied by a raging wind. The crowd saw a pair of incomparably lofty demonic eyes, like the sovereign of the heavens. That pair of eyes was as lofty as Qin Wendian's, unexcelled in the world. Clearly, those were the eyes of Qin Wendian. Demonic beast? How can this be possible? Qin Wendian's true form is that of a demonic beast? Many people exclaimed in shock. Did another incomparably majestic demonic beast appear in the city of ancient emperors? He doesn't seem to be a demonic beast. Could it be that he has an extremely powerful demonic transformation technique? If this was the case, Qin Wendian was truly too terrifying. He was able to comprehend God's hand and had the supreme comprehension abilities of humans, the terrifying physique and strength of demonic beasts, as well as the speed of a wind rock. He was simply a perfect incarnation. What was even more terrifying was that the crowd discovered that God's hand was still there. Qin Wendian, who had transformed into the sovereign of the skies, had a violet gold color in his claws. This was the god's hand, incomparably gigantic, as though it could destroy everything. Not long ago, the thoughts of the crowd seemed to have come true in the blink of an eye. Right now, Qin Wendian, who had transformed into a great rock, already had a terrifying aura at the 9th level of celestial phenomenon, in addition to the god's hand. Xiaolingyue and Xianxing's gazes froze as well. They stared fixedly at the great rock that appeared in the air. This fellow actually had such a trump card. He isn't a demon. This is a demonic art. He borrowed a powerful external force to transform into a great rock. Greedwolf, who was beside Xiaolingyue, spoke. Regardless of whether he is a demon or not, his combat prowess right now should be extremely high. Xiaolingyue spoke in a low voice. Even for her, ranked number 6 on the Immortal Ascension rankings, she didn't dare to underestimate Qin Wendian, who had transformed into a great rock and possessed the god's hand. Given his current state, he shouldn't be able to sustain a prolonged battle. Let's exhaust his energy first. Greedwolf spoke in a light voice. Xiaolingyue didn't reply, but she didn't deny it either. Bzzz. In the air, Qin Wendian, who had transformed into a great rock, flapped his wings, causing a raging wind to kick up. An extremely sharp wind gusted downwards, sweeping towards those experts who were stuck in the air. Qin Wendian coldly spoke. Since all of you can enter the city of ancient emperors, you are all descendants of immortal kings and emperors. There's no benefit in foolishly sacrificing your lives for others. Such a thing isn't worth it. If I act now, I won't show any mercy. The cold and tyrannical voice sounded like it came from the mouth of a true monarch, containing an unexcelled aura. Some people wavered. Regardless of Xiao Lingyue of the Xiao sect or Xian Xing of the Twin Stars Alliance, neither of them had any intentions of acting. It was like riding a tiger, it was hard for them to dismount. If they retreated now, it would seem like they were scared off by a single sentence from Qin Wenin. So many geniuses here are only afraid of you? You're just trying to scare us. Make your move, a voice rang out. It was none other than Xia Qianhan of the Xiao sect. As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying aura engulfed the entire sky. Instantly, numerous violet-gold divine arrows shot out, shimmering with golden runic light as they pierced through the air, shooting towards the great rock with lightning speed. Qin Wentian's god's hand grabbed downwards, directly blocking the golden divine arrows. They had no way to shake the god's palm. Bizizi! Qin Wentian's wings flapped as he instantly vanished from his original location. Although the wind rock's body was gigantic, a single flap of its wings allowed it to soar through the air. The speed of the wind rock was extremely fast. It had the title of the sovereign of the skies. With a flash, the terrifying body of the great rock directly appeared above the geniuses. The god's hand slammed downwards, wanting to shatter the void. Thunderous rumbling sounds rang out as quite a few geniuses were directly smashed into the ground, causing deep craters to appear on the ground. The bones in their bodies shattered as they screamed in agony. Disperse! An expert roared. The geniuses all unleashed their attacks at the same time. A moment later, gigantic palm imprints and sharp swords slashed out, unceasingly blasting towards the great rock. However, the great rock was like a bolt of lightning, vanishing from sight and reappearing in the air. How fast? It's too fast. The crowd inclined their heads and stared at the sky. Was this the speed of the sovereign of the skies? It could be said to be invincible. Qin Wenin had cultivated many of the techniques of the great rock, and he also had the rune bone of the paragon wind rock, allowing him to comprehend the power of the wind rock. Although he had transformed into a great rock, his strength was incomparably proficient. Bzizi! Qin Wenin, who was in the air, flapped his wings once again. A hurricane manifested as a violet gold long spear appeared on the palm imprint. A beam of light flashed as the great rock dove downwards. His long spear pierced out with an incomparably fearsome speed. Upon seeing such an attack, there was basically no one who dared to block it. In an instant, all the geniuses all retreated in all directions. Not a single person dared to face such a spear technique that was executed with God's hand. Such destructive might was simply unimaginable. God's hand. When Xian Xing saw how powerful God's hand was, the obsession in his heart grew even stronger. He had to obtain God's hand no matter what. Even if he had to dig out Qin Wentian's head, he had to obtain God's hand. However, at this moment, Xian Xing suddenly saw a cold gaze shooting towards him. After which, that beam of light that could sweep through everything was rapidly closing in on him. At this instant, Xian Xing only felt his hairs standing on end. He instantly released his constellation, forming an incomparably profound diagram that contained a terrifying divine might. Heavenly mystic mirror art. Xian Xing roared in rage when he saw the destructive attack of the long spear. The heavenly mystic mirror, the ultimate art cultivated by the Xian Emperor, was unleashed. An incomparably profound ancient mirror appeared in the air, containing an incomparably powerful and mysterious might. Boom! Qin Wentian's long spear pierced downwards as a blazing beam of light erupted forth. Xian Xing howled in rage as the ground beneath his feet crumbled unceasingly. That long spear seemed to want to suppress him on the spot. Cracking sounds rang out as cracks appeared on the heavenly mystic mirror. However, Qin Wentian's body was similarly flung through the air. The long spear in his hand had already shattered, and even the god's hand was trembling slightly. Reflect attack. The eyes of Qin Wenin, who was in the form of a great rock, were cold to the extreme. Was this the strength of a genius ranked number 27 on the Immortal Ascension rankings? The son of the Xian Emperor? To think that the heavenly mystic mirror art would actually have such a mystical might. However, because his strength was so strong that it exceeded the limits of the heavenly mystic mirror, the ancient mirror seemed to be on the verge of shattering. Bzzz. A raging wind gusted as Qin Wentian's body floated up once more. A long spear appeared in his god's hand, pulsing with destructive light. Xian Xing's body trembled slightly as he stared angrily at the sky. You dare? His heavenly mystic mirror art seemed to have no way to withstand another attack from Qin Wenyin. The power of this attack was simply too terrifying. It had reached an extreme. Chapter 9:18. The heavenly mystic mirror art is about to be broken. The hearts of everyone trembled. Any immortal emperor would have their own outstanding points, and they all cultivated terrifying ultimate arts. The heavenly mystic mirror art was one of the strongest ultimate arts of the Xian Emperor. It was able to reflect all attacks, and its might was extremely terrifying during combat. Xian Xing was extremely strong, and he also cultivated the heavenly mystic mirror art. Hence, he was ranked number 27 on the Immortal Ascension rankings. However, no secret arts or techniques could be invincible. Once they met with a stronger attack, the balance would be lost. And when the strength of the attack was too much, even the heavenly mystic mirror art wouldn't be able to withstand it. Just like what happened before their eyes, Xian Xing's heavenly mystic mirror art would only be able to block a single strike from Qin Wentian's god's hand. A second strike from Qin Wenyin would most probably destroy his heavenly mystic mirror art. At this moment, Xian Xing stared in anger at Qin Wenyin, who was in the air. That gigantic figure of Qin Wenyin gave him an immense sense of pressure. This was especially so for that incomparably gigantic god's hand. Runic light illuminated the sky, as though it was bestowed to him by a divinity. It contained supreme offensive power and was truly worthy of being a lost secret art of an ancient emperor. You don't dare! Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with a demonic light as he stared at Xian Xing below. Ever since the underground palace, Xian Xing had wanted to deal with him time and time again. He once said that even if he wanted his life, he would snatch the painting from Qin Wenyin. Let alone now that Qin Wenyin had already revealed his god's hand, Xian Xing wouldn't hesitate to take Qin Wentian's life for the sake of obtaining the god's hand. As the saying goes, killing is forbidden in the city of ancient emperors. Everyone would hold back, but that was only relative. If there wasn't a life and death grudge between them, everyone would hold back. But if the benefits were too great when a life and death battle occurred, the rules would be like glass, shattering with a single strike. From afar, the spectators all felt their hearts trembling. Although they were all geniuses, the disparity between Xian Xing, who was ranked number 27, and those who weren't on the Immortal Ascension rankings was simply too great. For those who couldn't even enter the Immortal Ascension rankings, there was no way they could withstand the attacks of Qin Wenyin in the form of a great rock. This was why they had to flee in all directions. As a result, Xian Xing had to face Qin Wenyin alone. A burst of intense light erupted forth. Qin Wentian's great rock form transformed into a beam of light. Demonic qi swept across the sky as a hurricane tore apart the void. Yet another violet gold long spear shot out. This spear strike was so powerful that even ghosts and gods would weep. Boundless runic light gushed forth, pressing towards Xian Xing. At this instant, Xian Xing was in the eye of the tempest, swaying in the wind and rain, as though he could be destroyed at any moment. Xian Xing's strength was released to the extreme. His palm transformed into an ancient mirror as boundless astral light and runic inscriptions frenziedly flowed into it. The heaven mystic mirror art released an incomparably dazzling light. Between the great rock and Xian Xing, there was a terrifying ancient mirror. However, everyone could still feel how insignificant Xian Xing was. Bang! The long spear slammed into the surface of the mirror once again. The god's hand trembled slightly. One could see how terrifying its might was. But at the same time, the sound of shattering rang out unceasingly. Finally, the ancient mirror broke apart. That destructive long spear continued its attack, wanting to kill Xian Xing on the spot. Upon seeing this scene, the gazes of everyone froze. Even Xiaoling Yue felt a chill in her heart. Qin Wenyan actually dared to do this, wanting to kill Xian Xing. Boom! Qin Wentian's long spear slammed into Xian Xing. Many people trembled, not daring to believe this scene would happen. But at this moment, a terrifying aura erupted forth from Xian Xing. It was as though an illusory palm directly grabbed hold of Qin Wentian's long spear. Xian Xing's body was jolted to the ground as he coughed out fresh blood. And from his body, a terrifying shadow could be seen. This was the silhouette of an extremely imposing expert. Just by standing there, he already exuded the might of an emperor, unexcelled in the world. Brat, this is the city of ancient emperors. Why must you be so ruthless? Show mercy wherever possible. That imposing figure stared at Qin Wenyan as he spoke. He stared at Qin Wenyan as he slowly spoke. Xian Emperor. The hearts of the people in the surroundings trembled. This shadow must be the Xian Emperor's appearance. As the son of the Xian Emperor, Xian Xing naturally had the immortal sense of the Xian Emperor in his body. You should say this to him. Xian Xing is too overbearing. If I don't kill him, he wants to kill me. Qin Wenyan stared at the Xian Emperor as he spoke. The Xian Emperor glanced at Qin Wentian's palm as a look of surprise appeared on his face. Scram! The Xian Emperor's palm trembled as the spear shattered. Qin Wenyan only felt his god's hand being struck by a terrifying force. His gigantic body was directly smashed into the void as his expression was incomparably cold. Against the immortal sense of the Xian Emperor, he had no way to resist at all. Most probably, if the Xian Emperor wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as flipping his palm. Qin Wenyan stabilized his body. His god's hand had already been shattered. His gigantic eyes turned incomparably cold. Although the Xian Emperor's attack only shattered his god's hand, he still wanted to cut off his path of retreat. Impudent! At this moment, terrifying black clouds appeared in the sky, churning frenziedly, as though a storm was brewing. A towering might bore down from the clouds as a pair of eyes appeared in the air, exuding a towering demonic might. That pair of eyes stared straight at the Xian Emperor. You dare to interfere in the city of ancient emperors? An incomparably imposing voice rang out. The Xian Emperor stared at the sky as he spoke. I'm only a strand of immortal sense protecting my son. I didn't kill anyone, nor did I interfere in the matters of the city of ancient emperors. I'll take my leave now. As the sound of his voice faded, the Xian Emperor coldly stared at Qin Wenyan in the air. After that, his strand of immortal sense directly dissipated as though it had never appeared before. Umph! A cold voice rang out in the air as the terrifying storm gradually dissipated. However, this scene caused the hearts of everyone to tremble. The city of ancient emperors was truly incomparably mysterious. Without permission, even immortal kings and emperors wouldn't be able to enter. Even immortal emperors weren't allowed to interfere in the matters of the city of ancient emperors. Xian Xing stood up. Although he was injured by that attack earlier, his father's immortal sense appeared and blocked the vast majority of the attack for him. Hence, he wasn't seriously injured. Right now, his eyes were staring at Qin Wenyan in the air as his killing intent was incomparably sharp. Xian Xing. From afar, a figure could be seen flying over. Xian Yang's speed was extremely fast, bringing the experts of the Twin Stars Alliance with him. Big brother! Xian Xing pointed to the great rock in the air when he saw Xian Yang. This man has obtained ancient Emperor Yi's secret art, God's Hand. Capture him. Xian Yang is here. This time around, Qin Wenyan is in danger. When everyone saw Xian Yang rushing over, they all faintly felt that Qin Wenyan was in for it. What sort of character was Xian Yang? He was ranked number 4 in the Immortal Ascension rankings. His heavenly mystic mirror art was many times stronger compared to Xian Xing. Even God's Hand might be able to block it. Let alone the fact that Qin Wentian's God's Hand was shattered by the immortal sense of the Xian Emperor. It was unknown whether or not he could reform it again. Those who could rank within the top 10 of the Immortal Ascension rankings were all extraordinary characters. They were true geniuses at the very peak, with shocking strength and secret arts. The strength of the number 4 Xian Yang was definitely unimaginable. Xian Yang nodded. His body slowly soared up into the air, exuding an unexcelled aura. His entire body circulated with a glass-like light as the power of his bloodline was released. His entire person turned translucent, resembling a mirror image that could vanish at any moment. His constellation also appeared. It was actually an ancient mirror with flowing light circulating around it. Xian Yang's heavenly mystic mirror art has been cultivated to an astonishing level, much stronger compared to Xian Xing. This secret art is extremely unique. Xian Yang used it in his attacks and defeated many geniuses. In the city of ancient emperors, he's an existence akin to a king. Someone mumbled. If Qin Wendian could still condense God's hand, he might be able to fight against Xian Yang. But if he couldn't condense it, he would die for sure. Qin Wendian floated in the air. His God's hand was shattered by the Xian Emperor's immortal sense, and it was true that he couldn't condense it again. This was ancient Emperor Yi's secret art, God's hand, a truly terrifying innate technique. How could it be so easy to cultivate? Even in its initial form, he needed the help of the spirit refinement method before he could use it. Although he was the only one who had successfully cultivated this secret art, there were still limitations to it. In the future, he still needed to be more proficient in it. This Xian Emperor should have seen how powerful God's hand is and intentionally destroyed it with a single strike. Qin Wendian silently mused. This Xian Emperor was as expected of an immortal emperor character. Although he was restricted by the city of ancient emperors and didn't directly injure him, he still understood what was best for his descendants. Xian Yang, ranked number 4 on the Immortal Ascension rankings. Qin Wendian stared at his opponent. Being ranked number 4 meant that Xian Yang's strength was at the peak of the entire immortal realms. You are courting death. Xian Yang stared at the great rock before him. His constellation shone with boundless light as he pressed his finger downwards. At this instant, the transparent mirror-like constellation shone with a golden luster. Beams of light directly pierced into Qin Wendian's eyes, accompanied by a boundless killing intent. The crowd only saw several beams of intense light appearing in the air. Each beam of light was like a mirror, shining with a violet gold luster. It was so blinding that it could hurt the eyes of those who looked at it, as well as containing a destructive might. Bzz. Qin Wendian's great rock body transformed into a beam of light as he soared up into the air. However, the beams of light continued shooting towards him, and any one of them could kill. How terrifying was the speed of light! It was actually able to chase after Qin Wendian's body. If Xian Yang's opponent was a genius that wasn't ranked in the Immortal Ascension rankings, he would have been instantly killed. How powerful! The people below stared at the sky. How could a true genius at the peak be weak? Do you only know how to dodge? Xian Yang roared. After which, the claws of the great rock slashed out, transforming into a gigantic palm that blotted out the skies. The beams of light that shot towards him were all destroyed. Bzz. A raging wind gusted as Qin Wendian directly rushed towards Xian Yang. As he moved forward, his sharp claws unceasingly slashed out, colliding with the beams of light. Qin Wendian's attacks are also excessively powerful. Even if he doesn't rely on God's hand, his current strength is already sufficient to rank within the top 100 of the Immortal Ascension rankings. Many people silently mused. Chapter 9:19. Xian Yang stared at Qin Wendian, yet the expression on his face was so calm that it was terrifying. Astral light shot out unceasingly, and although they were all destroyed by Qin Wendian's palm imprints, it still caused Qin Wendian to feel extremely unhappy. Bzz. A translucent long spear appeared, as though it was birthed from the constellation. Xian Yang stretched his hand out and grabbed it. This gigantic spear appeared in his palm, exuding a solemn and serene aura, causing everyone to feel the majesty of a supreme genius. Lingyue, Qin Wendian will lose for sure in this battle. We cannot allow Xian Yang to obtain Qin Wendian so easily. What should we do? Greed Wolf spoke to Xiao Lingyue, who was beside him. He was one of the top rankers in the Immortal Ascension rankings and was very clear on the disparity between Qin Wenyan and Xianyang. If Qin Wenyan had the god's hand, he would be able to fight against Xianyang because his attacks were incomparably powerful. But without the god's hand, Qin Wenyan's rock transformation only increased his speed and strength, but not his comprehension. His constellation was clearly weaker when compared to a peak-level mystic sun's celestial phenomenon ascendance. The amount of power he could borrow from his constellation was also far inferior compared to Xianyang. Although he could increase his strength by transforming into a great rock, he couldn't. Also, there was the matter of comprehension. For those geniuses ranked within the top 10 of the Immortal Ascension rankings, they all had their own unique insights. They already wanted to step into the immortal realm and comprehend the power of immortals. Although they hadn't reached the immortal realm yet, they had already grasped the embryonic form of immortal energy. Such an advantage would be extremely destructive to Qin Wenyan. How could the top rankers of the Immortal Ascension rankings have an undeserved reputation? Hence, from Greedwolf's point of view, even if Qin Wenyan borrowed the power of his great rock transformation, he would still lose for sure. Let's wait a little longer. Even if the two of us join forces, we might not be able to defeat Xianyang. Xiao Lingyue spoke. She wasn't arrogant at all. For those at their level, they all had secret arts that far surpassed ordinary geniuses. Xianyang had already utilized the heavenly mystic mirror art to the pinnacle of the celestial phenomenon realm, infusing it into all of his attacks. Each and every one of his strikes were able to create a backlash force. This also meant that when you fought against Xianyang, if you attacked him, you would suffer a backlash from your own energy. The stronger your attack, the stronger the backlash. From this, one could very well imagine how difficult it was to fight against Xianyang. If not, how could Xianyang be ranked number 4 on the Immortal Ascension rankings, suppressing her and the other female? Yes. Greedwolf nodded his head. In the air, Qin Wenyan descended with terrifying speed. His palms directly grabbed towards Xianyang, and as his claw descended, the shadow of a great rock manifested in the air. The rock let out a terrifying screech, wanting to tear Xianyang's body apart. Before this attack, Xianyang's body seemed extremely tiny and inconsequential. But the aura he exuded made him seem like a giant. The long spear in his hands slashed out as boundless astral energy shone upon it. Countless beams of light appeared in the air. Qin Wenyan found it hard to even open his eyes. Bang! An incomparably powerful force blasted into Qin Wenyan's sharp claw. He retreated like the wind, like a true wind rock, retreating far away. His gigantic claw trembled slightly, and as expected, it was the same as Xianxing's attack. At the same time when the attack was rebounded, there was also a terrifying burst of energy gushing forth. Under the stacking of these energies, Qin Wenyan's sharp claw felt like it was about to shatter. Qin Wenyan glanced at Xianyang's silhouette, silently musing that Xianyang was indeed worthy of being ranked number 4 on the Immortal Ascension rankings. He released his battle art as boundless runic light circulated around the body of the great rock. His eyes shone with incomparable sharpness, as though they could penetrate through people. His constellation shone in the sky, shining upon him. Bzz. A resplendent arc appeared in the air as Qin Wenyan rushed out once more. He was as swift as the wind, and only a beam of light could be seen. Xianyang still stood in the air, staring at the silhouette of the great rock. The power of his constellation frenziedly gushed forth, yet at this moment he saw Qin Wenyan completely ignoring the might of his constellation. When the destructive beams of light blasted into the body of the great rock, crisp sounds of collision rang out as they collided with the runic light on the surface of the great rock's body. What a terrifying defense! The hearts of the spectators trembled. The great rock was a demonic beast, the sovereign of the skies. Its speed and strength were terrifying, and its defense wasn't weak either. In addition to Qin Wenyan's battle art, as well as the fiend god body refinement art, Qin Wenyan's defense had truly reached a terrifying level. It was basically impossible to deal with him using only the might of his constellation. Qi. A palm strike capable of ripping apart the void blasted out. Xianyang directly stabbed out with his spear, and with a thunderous boom, Qin Wentian's silhouette vanished completely. Only the howling of the hurricane could be heard. Bang bang bang. Next, terrifying sounds of collision rang out unceasingly. That incomparably great rock's speed was too fast, akin to a bolt of lightning, unceasingly hacking towards Xian Yang. Xian Yang's attack speed was also extremely fast, and it was unknown how many times the two of them collided in that short instant. Time and time again, Xian Yang's entire body was akin to the silhouette of a great rock, blotting out the sun as his demonic qi towered up into the heavens. Although Xian Yang's strength was terrifying, such an endless number of collisions still caused him to feel somewhat impatient. How fast this speed is simply unparalleled. Even if Qin Wentian is defeated, if he wants to leave, even Xian Yang wouldn't be able to stop him. The hearts of the spectators trembled when they saw the earth-shattering collisions in the air. Abruptly, a marvelous aura gushed forth from Xian Yang as boundless astral light revolved around him. His long spear stabbed out once more. The speed of this spear seemed to have slowed down, but if one looked carefully, they would be able to see that when this spear pierced out, with Xian Yang as the center, the entire space seemed to be filled with a mysterious law energy, as if the entire void was a mirror. When the long spear pierced out, it directly descended in all directions. Xian Yang's spear was clearly piercing forward, yet the spear light was refracted in all directions. Bang! Behind Xian Yang, Qin Wentian's palm imprint smashed down, bringing with it a towering destructive might. However, a crisp sound rang out as beams of mirror-like light shot over, refracting unceasingly. Qin Wentian only felt that his sharp claws were withstanding an incomparably fearsome force. That was the force of his own attack. Not only that, the force of Qin Wentian's attack wasn't limited to just one level. Qin Wentian's strength seemed to have overlapped with each other, akin to a tsunami of attacks gushing towards him. With a thunderous boom, Qin Wentian, who was in the form of a great rock, was flung far away as he coughed out fresh blood. Immortal law energy. Below, the geniuses inclined their heads and stared at this scene with shock in their hearts. As expected, the geniuses ranked at the top of the Immortal Ascension rankings not only had towering attacks, they had also comprehended a strand of law energy, fusing it into their attacks. How terrifying! Multi-layered rebounding force. Although Qin Wentian was in the form of a great rock, he was still at a disadvantage in terms of cultivation base. Also, other than God's hand, all the other innate techniques he cultivated couldn't be compared to the Mystic Emperor's ultimate art, the heavenly mystic mirror art. In addition, Xian Yang had also comprehended a strand of immortal law energy. In this case, as long as he couldn't break the heavenly mystic mirror art, no matter how strong his attacks were, they would all be reflected back to him. Unless he had an absolute advantage like when he used God's hand against Xian Xing, he wouldn't be able to break the heavenly mystic mirror art with brute force. Qin Wentian, who was in the form of a great rock, was still retreating. After fighting for so long, his energy consumption rate was terrifying. In addition to the fact that he had encountered the ultimate attack earlier, he felt extremely fatigued. All of this, from the moment the Xian Emperor unleashed that ruthless strike, the ending was already set in stone. A casual strike from the Xian Emperor, although it didn't violate the rules of the City of Ancient Emperors, it still managed to break his god's hand. "Senior brother, be careful." At this moment, a roar rang out. It was none other than the voice of Jun Mengchen. Qin Wentian abruptly felt a sense of danger descending upon him. Behind him, there were several terrifying auras gushing towards him. At the same time, Xian Yang also stepped out, his speed as fast as lightning as he dashed towards Qin Wentian. Bzz! Qin Wentian's wings abruptly flapped, forcibly stopping his retreat. After which, he flapped his wings again and soared up into the sky. Grand freezing art. At this instant, a shocking wave of ice qi froze the heavens and earth. The entire space was covered in frost. Qin Wentian's gigantic body instantly froze, transforming into an ice sculpture. Not only him, the entire space he was in seemed to be frozen as well. However, the wind rock was still rushing upwards. Bang! A terrifying wave of demonic chi gushed forth, shattering the ice sculpture inch by inch. At this instant, Greed Wolf appeared on the back of the great rock and directly stabbed out with his finger. In that instant, the destructive might of the chaotic world pierced into Qin Wentian's body. The terrifying killing might ravaged Qin Wentian's body, causing him to feel as though his entire body was about to be torn apart. You won't be able to escape. Xiaoling Yue's cold voice drifted over. Another wave of ice energy descended, causing the expressions of the experts below to turn numb. Xian Yang, ranked number 4 on the Immortal Ascension rankings. Xiaoling Yue, ranked number 6 on the Immortal Ascension rankings. Greed Wolf, number 12 on the Immortal Ascension rankings. These three could all be said to be supreme geniuses, supreme experts. Now that they acted together against Qin Wenyan, one could very well imagine how terrifying the killing power would be. This battle was truly tragic. Qin Wenyan had cultivated the god's hand. How could these people not do their best to capture him? But now that he was in the form of a wind rock, his speed was simply too fast. If they wanted to capture Qin Wenyan, they would have to heavily injure him first. Xiaoling Yue's figure descended. Her palms were infused with the terrifying power of ice, growing stronger and stronger as she once again blasted out towards Qin Wentian's gigantic body. Her methods were extremely ruthless. Senior brother. Jun Mingchen's eyes were bloodshot. He soared up into the air. Zi Qingxian also did the same. However, the experts of the Shao sect directly blasted out palm imprints, obstructing them. Scram! Jun Mingchen stared at Xiaoling Yue's palms as the veins on his entire body bulged. This attack of hers would most probably cause his senior brother to suffer a devastating injury. Finally, Xiaoling Yue's attack blasted out. Jun Mingchen let out a terrifying roar that shook the heavens and earth. Bang! The power of ice finally blasted out, but it didn't manage to land a hit on Qin Wentian's body. The power of ice was frenziedly being torn apart as an intense golden light appeared in the air, frenziedly tearing apart the power of ice. Within that golden light, a supreme silhouette could be seen. Chapter 920. Who? A dazzling golden light descended, causing the hearts of the geniuses to tremble. Before this, Xiaoling Yue and Greed Wolf suddenly acted against Qin Wenyan. Evidently, they didn't want Xian Yang to capture Qin Wenyan and wanted to injure him before snatching him away. But at this instant, golden light illuminated the sky. There seemed to be an expert descending from the heavens to save Qin Wenyan. Could it be that this person was the same as Xiaoling Yue, someone who wanted to snatch Qin Wenyan away? A spatial storm appeared in the sky, and dazzling rays of golden light shot out in all directions like sharp swords. When they saw the figure wrapped in light, everyone's eyes narrowed, and their hearts trembled violently. Xian Yang, who was rushing over, suddenly stopped. He frowned, and a strange expression appeared on his face. Why was she here as well? Was she also here for the god's hand? The figure that appeared was actually a peerlessly beautiful woman. Her expression was as cold as ice, and even though she was angry, she was still so beautiful that it caused people's hearts to tremble, and they couldn't help but feel pity for her. Her holy figure was like a celestial maiden from the 9 heavens, noble, holy, and elegant. What a beautiful maiden! Her countenance is even more outstanding compared to Xiaoling Yue. Who is she? Someone asked. Could she be Nam Huang Yunxi? No, I've seen Nam Huang Yunxi once before. Although they are both supreme beauties, their auras are different. Someone replied. Then who could she be? There are only 3 people in the city of ancient emperors with such an aura. Xiaoling Yue is already here, and Nam Huang Yunxi is also eliminated. Who else could it be? That person spoke again, his words causing the gazes of everyone to tremble. Among the 3 supreme beauties in the city of ancient emperors, the daughter of the Chongqing the Great was the most mysterious. She rarely showed her face in public and had an innate immortal king physique. She didn't establish any sect in the city of ancient emperors, and there were no rumors of her interacting with anyone. But now she actually appeared? The daughter of Chongqing the Great, Princess Qinghe? Many people gradually learned the identity of the person who had appeared, and they were slightly surprised. The person who was most unlikely to appear actually appeared here at this moment? Is she Qing'er, senior brother Qin's lover? Jun Mingchen stopped fighting at this moment. He stared at the peerless figure floating in the air as a smile appeared on his face. Just when senior brother Qin needed help the most, Princess Qing'er had appeared. Not only that, she was a peerless beauty that matched well with senior brother Qin. No wonder senior brother Qin had always wanted to find her. Senior brother Qin and Princess Qing'er will definitely become an immortal couple. Jun Mingchen smiled. Zi Qingxian, who was beside him, also stared at that peerless figure as a look of disappointment flashed through her eyes. No wonder he couldn't forget about Princess Qing'er. Such a woman, with such strength and status, she had appeared by his side when he needed her the most, fighting shoulder to shoulder with him. In the air, Qin Wenyin, who was in the form of a great rock, stared at that familiar figure as boundless warmth flashed in his eyes. At this instant, it was as though all the pain and injuries he had suffered were insignificant. After so many years, he finally saw Qing'er again. The distance between the particle world and the immortal realms was simply too far. Sometimes, he was also afraid that the two of them would be separated from each other. He was worried that time would change too much. Fortunately, he was thinking too much. She still appeared when he needed her the most. Just like in the past, as a man, he should have been the one to protect her. However, Qing'er was like his knight. She would always appear when he was in the most difficult situation, stand in front of him, and give him the help he needed the most. Moreover, she would do it silently, without asking for anything in return. This feeling, under the passage of time, accumulated deeper and deeper. A powerful golden light enveloped Qing'er, as well as Qin Wentian's gigantic body. Qing'er coldly stared at Xiao Lingyue, so cold that it caused chills to rise in the hearts of people. Xiao Lingyue also stared at the peerless figure before her. Regardless of demeanor or countenance, this woman wasn't in any way inferior to her. The daughter of Changqing the Great, Princess Qing'er? Although Xiao Lingyue had never met Qing'er before, she could guess her identity. She had always been searching for Qing'er. The Immortal Ascension rankings stated that she was ranked number 6 while Qing'er was ranked number 5. In fact, Qing'er had even surpassed her. This made Xiao Lingyue extremely unhappy. She had been searching for Qing'er for a long time, wanting to have a battle with her. But even so, Xiao Lingyue didn't expect that they would meet each other at such a time. At such a time, Qing'er shouldn't have appeared here. You also want to capture him and snatch God's hand? Seeing that Qing'er wasn't replying, Xiao Lingyue continued, I initially thought that you had nothing to do with the world. But now that God's hand has appeared, you can no longer endure it? Qing'er still coldly stared at her, ignoring Xiao Lingyue. She turned her head back and saw the warmth in Qin Wentian's eyes. The coldness in her eyes vanished, replaced with a hint of worry. She didn't expect that she would encounter Qin Wentian here in the city of ancient emperors. She didn't expect that he would be able to arrive so quickly in the city of ancient emperors where the geniuses of the immortal realms gathered. Qing'er had never doubted Qin Wentian. It was just that she didn't expect Qin Wentian to be able to arrive so quickly. Seeing Qing'er directly turning her head and ignoring her, Xiao Lingyue's entire body erupted with coldness, extremely terrifying. After that, she only heard a melodious voice ringing out. You are injured. Qing'er stared at Qin Wentian. That melodious and gentle silhouette of hers was completely different from the cold demeanor she exuded earlier. It was as though they were two different people. Her voice contained a trace of worry, as well as a hint of sadness. The gazes of the crowd froze. This Qin Wentian was acquainted with the daughter of the Changqing the Great, Princess Qing'er. Qing'er didn't come here for the God's hand. But rather, it was because she was acquainted with Qin Wentian? Xiao Lingyue's beautiful eyes froze as she stared ahead in bewilderment. After that, she only saw a smile flickering in Qin Wentian's eyes as he spoke. After seeing you, what do these injuries count for? As the sound of his voice faded, the hearts of the crowd trembled. Qin Wentian's words were filled with ambiguity. They stared at Qing'er's expression, wanting to see her expression of anger. However, she was still as calm as ever, as cold as ever. However, the coldness she exuded was different from the coldness she showed to Xiaolingyue. This was an innate temperament, containing a hint of warmth within the coldness. Or maybe, this was just her personality. To everyone's surprise, Princess Qing'er wasn't angry at all. She only asked, "Why did you come to the city of ancient emperors?" "I came here to look for you," Qin Wenyin replied. "I met Princess Liuli before. She told me that you are here." Qing'er's expression was as cold as ever. However, a hint of warmth could be seen in her beautiful eyes, as well as her heart. No wonder he would appear here, he was actually here to look for her. Qin Wenyin must have experienced many trials and tribulations on his way from his particle world to the city of ancient emperors. The conversation between the two of them caused strange expressions to appear on the faces of many. Seems like the relationship between Qin Wenyin and Princess Qing'er was extraordinary. Their words were extremely intimate. Princess Qing'er. At this moment, Xian Yang, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke. He coldly continued, "This man is incomparably arrogant, wanting to kill my younger brother. I will definitely settle this debt with him. This matter has nothing to do with you, so please don't interfere." Things are getting more and more interesting. Xian Yang is ranked number 4 on the Immortal Ascension rankings, Princess Qing'er is ranked number 5, and Xiaolingyue is ranked number 6. All three of them have appeared here. How interesting. The spectators all had expressions of interest on their faces as they stared at the geniuses in the air. The three of them were facing off against each other, with Qin Wenyin at the center of the storm. Xian Yang and Xiaolingyue both wanted to capture him and obtain the god's hand. Yet, Qing'er was acquainted with Qin Wenyin and wanted to protect him. Qing'er's countenance was ice cold. She coldly stared at Xian Yang, ignoring him. Her personality was still the same as before, rarely speaking. Only Qin Wenyin could make her speak more. "Let me ask you one last time. Are you going to scram or not?" Qin Wentian's gigantic eyes stared at Xian Yang as he coldly spoke. Xian Yang's eyes flashed with coldness. "Could it be that you think Princess Qing'er will definitely be able to protect you? In addition, are you even qualified to speak to me by relying on a woman?" "Relying on a woman?" A mocking expression appeared on Qin Wentian's face. "Even your father acted against me, shattering my god's hand. Yet you still have the face to speak to me like this? If it wasn't for your father intentionally doing this, do you think you have the qualifications to be so arrogant in front of me? Since this is the case, let me see if your father left a strand of his immortal sense on you." Qin Wenyin icily spoke. "Leave it to me." Qing'er seemed to understand what Qin Wenyin wanted to do. She then walked to Qin Wentian's side. "I can't possibly face you in my great rock form again, right? Qing'er, it's fine. Given my current strength, although the amplification effect of these techniques is getting weaker and weaker, the damage they can do to me is also getting weaker. I don't need to recuperate for too long." Qin Wentian's gigantic eyes flickered with a gentle smile. Xian Yang was the number 4 ranker on the Immortal Ascension rankings. In addition to Xiaolingyue and Greedwolf, how could he feel at ease leaving them to Qing'er? "Qing'er, leave it to me." Qin Wentian laughed. Abruptly, boundless sword might gushed forth from him. His entire body seemed to be on fire, as though he wanted to squeeze out every last strand of energy from his body. A towering beam of sword light shot up into the sky. Qin Wentian's gigantic body flickered as his sword might swept out in all directions, transforming into a terrifying wave of sword qi. "It's that strike." From afar, Ji Lanshan and the other experts from the God Extermination Palace felt their hearts trembling when they saw this scene. If Qin Wenyin transformed into a great rock and unleashed that sword strike, how terrifying would the might be? Imichem? Xian Yang abruptly furrowed his brows. He activated the heavenly mystic mirror art to its limits, but he could also sense an intense threat from Qin Wenyin. That surge of sword qi was simply too terrifying. Qin Wenyin stretched out his claws. Instantly, boundless sword might congregated on his claws. His gigantic claws slashed out as a world-shaking sword qi manifested, capable of annihilating everything. I'm thinking, earlier when your little brother Xianxing suffered an attack from me, your father's immortal sense appeared and acted against me as an immortal emperor, shattering my god's hand. In that case, would a second strand of immortal sense appear on your little brother Xianxing's body? Qin Wentian coldly spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, Xian Yang's countenance drastically changed. What do you mean? Chapter 9:21. Xian Yang's expression changed when he heard Qin Wentian's words. Just like what Qin Wentian said, Xianxing had already suffered a fatal blow. It was the immortal sense of his father, the Xian Emperor, that protected Xianxing from death and shattered Qin Wentian's god's hand. Xianxing no longer had the protection of his immortal sense. If he were to receive another attack like the one earlier, it would definitely be a destructive blow to him. This was also the reason why the Xian Emperor wanted to destroy God's hand. But right now, the energy unleashed by Qin Wentian was enough to threaten Xianxing's life. How could Xian Yang not be shocked? After he shouted out the words, "What do you mean?" Qin Wentian's gigantic body had already moved. He was like a bolt of lightning, radiating boundless sword might as he shot downwards. Fast, so fast that it was inconceivable. Not good, Xianxing has an immortal weapon. Xian Yang roared. Xianxing didn't even have time to react. Just as the sound of Qin Wentian and Xian Yang's voice faded, he saw a terrifying great rock speeding towards him. Instantly, Xianxing's aura gushed forth frenziedly as an immortal weapon appeared in his hands. Halt! A cold voice rang out. A surge of sword qi condensed into a corporeal sword as boundless sword might enveloped Xianxing within. The terrifying great rock blocked Xianxing's vision. The claws of the great rock pressed down, as though as long as Qin Wentian's claws pressed down, Xianxing would be pierced through by thousands of swords. An ancient mirror appeared in his hand. Runic light flashed as immortal energy gushed forth. However, Xianxing's hand stopped there. He didn't activate his immortal weapon. A truly powerful attack could determine life and death in a single breath. At this moment, Qin Wentian only needed a single breath to take Xianxing's life. As long as he released his sword qi, Xianxing would die for sure. He wouldn't have the time to activate his immortal weapon. You dare? Xian Yang roared. He stepped forward as his aura towered up into the sky, terrifying to the extreme. Qin Wentian's speed was simply too fast. In terms of pure speed, Xian Yang definitely wasn't a match for Qin Wentian. Xianxing wasn't a match either. Hence, when Qin Wentian attacked Xianxing, Xian Yang had no way to stop him. Xianxing's cold eyes stared at the figure in the air as he icily spoke. If you really kill me, leaving aside the question of whether you can leave the city of ancient emperors alive, even if you manage to do so, my father would surely hunt you down. Although the elders of the younger generation would not interfere in the grudges between the younger generation and the younger generation, if they really killed the younger generation, revenge was inevitable. Killing Xianxing would definitely anger the mystic the Arch. Everyone stared at this scene as their hearts trembled. Before this, when Qin Wentian was controlling the god's hand, he had already launched a fatal attack against Xianxing. It was the mystic Thearcha's immortal sense that obstructed him. Hence, no one could guarantee that Qin Wentian wouldn't kill Xianxing. He might really kill Xianxing, even if the person before him was the son of an immortal emperor. Her lowered her head and stared below. Cold, it was like other than when she was facing Qin Wentian, she would always be like this. No matter what Qin Wentian wanted to do, she wouldn't stop him. Even if he really wanted to kill Xianxing, the son of an immortal emperor. Keep your immortal weapon. Qin Wentian icily spoke. Xianxing's eyes stiffened as he stared fixedly at the sky. Bzz. Sword qi gushed forth, Qin Wentian's sharp claws pressed down again. Boundless sword qi penetrated Xianxing's body, causing his hair to flutter wildly as his countenance turned pale. Fine, I will keep it. You won't make such a foolish choice, right? Xianxing kept his immortal weapon as he spoke in a loud voice. The geniuses of the Twin Stars Alliance all moved towards Qin Wenyan, as though as long as Qin Wenyan really killed Xian Xing, they would instantly erupt with power. Qin Wenyan's gigantic body continued pressing downwards. Staring at his cold eyes, Xian Xing's body trembled slightly. Nervousness, incomparably nervousness. Xian Xing's entire body was stretched taut. This was a moment of life and death. No matter if he was the son of an immortal emperor or a supreme genius, if he lost his life, everything would come to an end. Qin Wenyan, if you really kill Xian Xing, you definitely won't be able to bear the consequences. Xian Yang icily spoke. Qin Wenyan, don't be rash. I can give up on God's hand. Xian Xing took a step back and even promised to give up on God's hand. However, Qin Wenyan's body was still pressing downwards. His gigantic body was already right above Xian Xing's head. A stifling pressure bore down on Xian Xing. Qin Wenyan flapped his wings, causing a raging wind to kick up as demonic qi gushed forth. Xian Xing's body trembled even more violently as he stared fixedly at Qin Wenyan. From now onwards, I will definitely kill anyone who dares to seize God's hand. Qin Wenyan howled in rage as a raging wind ravaged the entire space. His wings flapped furiously as he directly dove downwards. Like a bolt of lightning, his silhouette directly vanished from sight. Boom! Xian Yang was dumbfounded. The other geniuses were all dumbfounded as they stared at the blood that was fluttering in the air. That was Xian Xing's head, directly penetrated by the sword qi. A sharp claw latched onto his head as a myriad of swords pierced through his heart, causing fresh blood to spurt out. He really killed him. The son of an immortal emperor, Qin Wenyan, killed him. He forced Xian Xing to give up his immortal ranked weapon and continued to press downwards. It wasn't because of considerations, but because he wanted to kill Xian Xing without unleashing the destructive might of that sword strike. Qin Wenyan has been planning to take Xian Xing's life from the start. The reason why he held back was because he wanted to use the simplest method to end Xian Xing's life. That terrifying sword might has yet to be unleashed. He has been delaying for time. The hearts of the spectators pounded violently. Xian Xing's eyes hadn't even closed yet. His body slowly fell downwards. No matter how arrogant he was, no matter how noble his status was, he still died in the city of ancient emperors, losing his life. Qin Wenyan really dared to kill Xian Xing. Xian Yang howled in madness. His body rushed towards Xian Xing, leaving behind only a corpse on the ground. His entire body trembled as he clenched his fists tightly. His aura towered up into the heavens, as though he would explode at any moment. His younger brother, Xian Xing, actually died in this tempering exercise in the city of ancient emperors. With a roar of rage, Xian Yang's fists slammed into the ground, causing it to crumble. He inclined his head and stared at Qin Wenyan, who was in the air. Bizizi! A raging wind gusted as sword qi gushed down from the sky, resembling a river of swords from the 9 heavens. The boundless sword might contained a towering killing intent. The claws of the great rock were still there. This sword had yet to be unleashed. Terrifying immortal might gushed forth. Xian Yang took out his immortal ranked long spear, exuding boundless killing intent. However, a sword keening filled the air as an incomparably demonic sword manifested from Qin Wenyan's body. This sword directly sliced through Qin Wenyan's palm, causing his sharp claws to bleed. Droplets of blood dripped onto the sword, causing a terrifying demonic qi to radiate from the sword. Clanging sounds rang out as it radiated boundless immortal light, wanting to tear apart the heavens. The shadow of a great rock could be faintly seen on the body of this sword, exuding an incomparable loftiness, like a true sovereign of the skies. The demon sword once said that it was a great rock in the clouds, hating the fact that the heavens were too low. Right now, the heavens of the immortal realms should be much higher compared to the heavens of particle worlds. It's not only the descendants of the Xian Emperor who have immortal ranked weapons. Qin Wenyan icily spoke. His other hand grabbed the wind rock rune bone as the shadow of a wind rock appeared, enveloping him. At this instant, the terrifying demonic qi and sword qi were so powerful that it caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Xian Yang's rage towered up into the sky. He stared fixedly at Qin Wenyin, who was in the air. After Xian Xing died, the grudge between the two of them had already transformed into a life and death grudge. Chapter 922. What a powerful spatial energy, traversing through space and ignoring all attacks. This must be immortal law energy. Upon seeing Qing Er directly stepping out from Shaolin Yue's attack, ignoring all of it, the hearts of the geniuses all trembled. No wonder Princess Qing Er could be ranked number 5 on the Immortal Ascension rankings. Even before Shaolin Yue, she had already comprehended a trace of immortal law energy, a transcendent force. The immortal realm was a huge threshold because it was a leap, a transformation. For those geniuses at the peak, even if they only comprehended a simple trace of immortal law energy, they would still be able to create terrifying effects. Only to see Qing Er's silhouette penetrated through the attacks and appeared before Shaolin Yue. Punching out a simple punch, the resplendent spatial laceration energy transformed into resplendent beams of light, as though wanting to sever the space apart. The spectators only saw the beams of light enveloping Shaolin Yue within. The might of this single punch was so strong that it caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Shaolin Yue's entire body was enveloped by frost energy as rumbling sounds rang out, freezing the entire space. She stabbed out with her finger, causing an extreme coldness to corrode Qing Er's body. Only to see Qing Er slashing out with her palm as a beam of light slashed out, breaking apart the frozen space as it shot towards Shaolin Yue. Shaolin Yue's finger pointed towards that beam of sword light, unleashing a terrifying might as the sword light directly exploded apart. Frozen extermination calamity finger. The expressions of the spectators all stiffened when they saw Shaolin Yue's finger art. She stretched out her jade-like hands as all 10 of her fingers shot out at the same time, as fast as lightning. The instant her finger art was unleashed, the space in front of her seemed to be frozen solid, capable of destroying everything in an instant. At the instant Shaolin Yue unleashed her frozen extermination calamity finger, Qing Er also stretched out her palms. Resplendent golden light flashed as both her palms blasted out, manifesting a circular golden diagram. Boundless astral light cascaded down on it as the diagram expanded in size, directly blocking the space between the two of them. Shaolin Yue's frozen extermination calamity finger frenziedly slammed into it, wanting to freeze the entire diagram. However, her attacks were unceasingly sucked into the golden diagram, being minced into pieces by the frenzied spinning of the diagram. The golden diagram abruptly radiated boundless light as it blasted outwards, wanting to destroy everything. This caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble violently. Shaolin Yue was in danger. These two heavenly geniuses were really crazy. Now that they were fighting in close combat, the danger was undoubtedly very high. The slightest carelessness could lead to serious injuries or even death. How powerful, that's one of Matriarch GD's supreme innate techniques, the immortal slaying diagram. Some geniuses recognized Qing Er's attack as shock filled their hearts. Changqing the Great's daughter, Princess Qing Er, was an innately born immortal king and has an extraordinary physique. Back then when Changqing the Great fought for the throne, to protect her, he had to send her away. After he brought her back to the immortal empire, it's rumored that Changqing the Great doted on her a lot and even wanted to nurture her as his successor. Hence, he sent Princess Qing Er to Matriarch GD's place to cultivate. GD accepted Princess Qing Er as her personal disciple upon seeing her. This wasn't because she was giving face to Changqing the Great, it was because she truly liked Princess Qing Er. If not, she wouldn't have imparted her secret arts to her. One of the geniuses spoke in a low voice. These descendants of immortal emperors were all extremely knowledgeable and were extremely familiar with the powerful immortal emperors of the immortal realms. Indeed, what status does GD have in the immortal realms? She has always done things her own way and has a stubborn personality. She wouldn't give face to anyone. If it wasn't for the fact that she liked Princess Qing Er, She wouldn't have accepted the daughter of Chongqing the Great as her personal disciple. How could these people not know who GD was? Princess Qing Air had two immortal emperors standing behind her. How terrifying was that? The immortal slaying diagram radiated a boundless light, capable of destroying everything. In an instant, Xiao Lingyue was enveloped by the threat of death. Xiao Lingyue's attack seems to have been countered. The spectators silently mused. The power of spatial attacks was truly terrifying. No wonder Qing Air was ranked above Xiao Lingyue in the Immortal Ascension rankings. The power of the frozen extermination calamity finger unceasingly froze, yet it was also unceasingly lacerated by the immortal slaying diagram. Xiao Lingyue gave a shrill cry as her entire body was enveloped by the power of frost, resembling an ice sculpture. Traces of frigid qi emanated from her body, and even though the spectators were extremely far away, they could still feel it. Immortal slaying diagram? Xiao Lingyue let out a long howl. Her constellation shone brilliantly as a powerful freezing energy sealed this space, transforming it into a world of ice. She blasted out with both her palms, directly slamming into the immortal slaying diagram. That terrifying freezing energy seemed to be able to ignore the obstruction of energy and directly slammed into Qing Air, causing Qing Air's entire body to be corroded by the coldness. However, she was still as cold as ever. Her countenance didn't change at all. She slapped out with her palms as the light from the immortal slaying diagram grew even more intense, capable of destroying everything in this space. After which, Qing Air's palms blasted outwards as the immortal slaying diagram shot out, lacerating everything in its path. Xiao Lingyue's countenance drastically changed as she retreated unceasingly. At the same time, she blasted out with her fists. However, she only saw Qing Air waving her hands as a blinding light flashed. The immortal slaying diagram transformed into countless patterns of light that slashed out, colliding with Xiao Lingyue's attack. Puchi! Fresh blood splashed out as Xiao Lingyue's palms were stained with blood. She stretched out both her palms as boundless freezing energy converged, blocking the attacks of the patterns of light. However, her body was still pierced through by the light, and when the attacks landed, Xiao Lingyue stood in the air. Although she was still as beautiful as ever, there was a sense of poignancy in her. Her entire body was covered in blood, looking extremely miserable. Xiao Lingyue was defeated in the end. Although Princess Qing Air doesn't show her face much, her strength is truly powerful. With the guidance of two immortal emperors, her ranking is above Xiao Lingyue's. The hearts of the spectators trembled when they saw the two supreme beauties in the air. It was truly rare to be able to witness a battle between two heavenly geniuses. Right now, they had no idea how terrifying Namhuang Yunxi's strength was. Bizizi. Spatial energy enveloped Qing Air's body. Her body trembled as divine inscriptions appeared beneath her feet. She vanished, only to see a resplendent spatial light abruptly appearing in front of Qing Air. The expression of Qing Air who appeared was ice cold. She lifted her palms and punched out once more. This punch contained the power to pierce through space, and with a flash of light, it directly blasted towards Xiao Lingyue. Victory and defeat have already been decided, yet she still wants to continue fighting. The expressions of the spectators froze. They could see the coldness radiating from this mysterious Princess Qing Air. Her gaze was extremely cold when she stared at Xiao Lingyue, and each of her attacks were merciless. Xiao Lingyue has always been searching for Qing Air because she wanted to defeat her and prove her own ranking in the Immortal Ascension rankings. However, it's possible that Princess Qing Air has never paid attention to Xiao Lingyue before. It's only because of Xiao Lingyue's earlier attack against Qin Wenyin that caused this daughter of the Chongqing the Great to be enraged. Although she doesn't say anything, her rage is clearly manifested in her attacks. This punch of Qing Air's was extremely tyrannical. Xiao Lingyue's countenance abruptly changed. She could also sense the anger contained within Qing Air's attack. This wasn't as simple as wanting to defeat her in a spar. Xiao Lingyue retreated explosively while unleashing a terrifying freezing energy. Her frozen extermination calamity finger collided with the spatial fist light, but the finger light was directly torn apart. The terrifying spatial shockwaves slammed into her, breaking through her defenses. However, this was merely the beginning. Qing Er's silhouette vanished once more, only leaving behind a beam of spatial light. That beam of light seemed to contain the power of teleportation. Another fist of spatial light blasted out, causing Xiaoling Yue's countenance to change. She continued to defend, and in a short instant, the entire space was filled with golden beams of light. Qing Er's silhouette seemed to appear in every single location. What a tyrannical attack! This seems to be GD's style. It's rumored that GD is extremely proficient in spatial energy, and her attacks are incomparably violent. Many immortal emperors are in awe of her. Xiaoling Yue's aura has already weakened. She's completely suppressed. I'm afraid she's going to be at a disadvantage. As expected, the boundless attacks caused Xiaoling Yue to be incomparably frustrated. When another fist blasted out, she lifted her hand and stabbed out with a finger. However, this time around, Qing Er's silhouette didn't vanish. Instead, she directly rushed toward Xiaoling Yue. The terrifying fist light didn't dissipate, it directly penetrated through everything. "You!" Xiaoling Yue roared in rage. A terrifying energy gushed forth from her body, wanting to freeze this entire space. Qing Er's body was enveloped within, but right now, she only had a single fist that could penetrate through everything. Boundless fist lights stacked on top of one another, tearing apart the layers of space. Bang! A thunderous sound rang out. Xiaoling Yue's body was about to be penetrated by that fist light. Qing Er's fist directly penetrated through everything, slamming into Xiaoling Yue's body. Xiaoling Yue! At this instant, the spectators were all shocked as they stared at the shocking scene before them. A bright light flashed as another silhouette directly walked out. Qing Er's body instantly froze. The immortal sense of the Xiao Emperor appeared, standing behind Xiaoling Yue. "Impudent! Or you! How dare you be so ruthless?" The immortal sense of the Xiao Emperor coldly snorted. Qing Er's gaze was as cold as ever. She stared at him, daughter of the evergreen immortal emperor, disciple of GD. Do. The expression of the Xiao Emperor froze. He instantly thought of a junior, the beloved daughter of the evergreen immortal emperor. So it's the beloved daughter of the evergreen immortal emperor. However, isn't it a little too rude to have so many elders talking to you? You and Ling Yue are both training in the city of ancient emperors. Why must you be so ruthless? The voice of the Xiao Emperor contained an intense imposingness, causing everyone to be speechless. The battle today had actually attracted the immortal senses of two immortal emperors. In addition, given Qing Er's status, even the Xiao Emperor wouldn't dare to go too far, right? If not, Qing Er would also have her own immortal sense protecting her. At the end of the day, the grudge between Qing Er and Xiaoling Yue would still have to be resolved by themselves. You ask her what she did. Qing Er's expression was as cold as ever. The Xiao Emperor glanced at Xiaoling Yue only to see that right now, Xiaoling Yue's expression was extremely unsightly to behold. Not only was she defeated, she was utterly defeated. Even her father's immortal sense was activated. This was definitely a humiliating battle. Enough, if Ling Yue did anything overboard, I'll apologize on her behalf. As geniuses of the immortal realms, it's fine for us to stop here. Don't let your elders and I have too much enmity. I won't be able to stay in the city of ancient emperors for too long, so I'll bring her away now. In the future, don't do this again. The Xiao Emperor spoke as he brought Xiaoling Yue away, vanishing from this location. Seems like even if the Xiao Emperor appeared, it wouldn't be good for him to bully juniors. Also, given Qing Er's status, it wasn't so easy to antagonize her. If a grudge was formed, given that Xiaoling Yue's strength was inferior to Qing Er, she would definitely be at a disadvantage in the city of ancient emperors. Chapter 923. Xiaoling Yue has left. The geniuses inclined their heads and stared at the sky. The leader of the Xiao sect, Xiaoling Yue, was ranked number 6 on the Immortal Ascension rankings. It wasn't a secret that she was searching for Qing'er in the city of ancient emperors. Many people knew about this. Xiaoling Yue wanted to defeat Qing'er and prove that she shouldn't be ranked behind Qing'er. However, she had lost this battle and lost miserably. She was struck by Qing'er's terrifying spatial fist, and the protective immortal sense the Xiao Emperor had left on her was activated, allowing her to survive. The Xiao Emperor brought her away from this place. After all, according to the rules of the city of ancient emperors, he couldn't stay for too long. He couldn't interfere with the affairs of the city of ancient emperors. Staring at that cold figure in the air, the daughter of the Chongqing the Great, the disciple of the southern matriarch GD, she actually dared to act. Was all this because Xiaoling Yue had injured Qin Wenyan? The relationship between Princess Qing'er and Qin Wenyan seemed to be extraordinary. Because of that attack from Xiaoling Yue, Princess Qing'er didn't hesitate to offend Xiaoling Yue to the point of wanting to kill her. At this moment, many people couldn't help but feel curious. Qin Wenyan, what was his identity? To think that he was actually worthy of Princess Qing'er's treatment. Sis Qingxian, the more I look at Princess Qing'er, the more I feel that senior brother Qin and Princess Qing'er are a match made in heaven. No wonder senior brother Qin has been searching for her. Their relationship must be very deep, right? Jun Mingchen stared at Qing'er, who dared to kill the daughter of an immortal emperor for the sake of Qin Wenyan. He couldn't help but feel gratified for his senior brother. Before this, Jun Mingchen was still thinking about what kind of woman his senior brother would find to be worthy of him. He was even worried that he would be disappointed and see a princess like Xiaoling Yue. But now, all his doubts were gone. He only wished Qin Wenyan and the others well. However, at this moment, Qin Wenyan was still in a standoff with Xian Yang. Qin Wentian's demon sword hummed unceasingly, causing the spectators below to retreat. The spear in Xian Yang's hand pierced out with heaven-shattering might, terrifying to the extreme. Both of them didn't dare to be distracted. Their control over their immortal weapons was weak, but the power they could unleash was terrifying. If they didn't go all out, the slightest distraction would give the other party an opportunity to launch a destructive attack. However, the two of them were very clear about the battle over there. Qing'er defeated Xiaoling Yue and the Xiao Emperor brought Xiaoling Yue away. The people of the Xiao sect didn't interfere at all. That was a battle that Xiaoling Yue had always been looking forward to. In addition, there were many geniuses who joined the Xiao sect not because they had a good relationship with Xiaoling Yue, but because of her status, her beauty, and her talent. When the other legendary Qing'er appeared, not only was her beauty not inferior to Xiaoling Yue's, but also her status. The people of the Xiao sect naturally wouldn't join in the battle against a peak-level beauty like Qing'er. In this battle, the alliance formed by the Xiao sect would most probably crumble apart. In addition to the fact that Qin Wenyan had disregarded everything to kill Xian Xing, the grudge between him and Xian Yang had escalated to the level of a life-and-death grudge. In addition to that, the daughter of the Chongqing the Great, Princess Qing'er, was also involved. The geniuses of the Twin Stars Alliance wouldn't easily join in to deal with Qin Wenyan. In such a situation, even though Xian Yang was ranked number 4 on the Immortal Ascension rankings, he was still at a disadvantage. Xian Yang most probably won't be able to avenge Xian Xing, many people silently mused. Qing'er's appearance, in addition to her battle with Xiaoling Yue, as well as Qin Wentian's immortal vanquishing swordplay, had instantly turned the situation around. There's a limit to your strength, right? If I don't kill you today, you won't have a day of peace in the city of ancient emperors. Xian Yang finally spoke. Right now, the pressure Qin Wenyan radiated was extremely terrifying. In addition to the fact that Princess Qing'er was beside him, it was impossible for him to kill Qin Wenyan under such circumstances. Is that so? Qin Wenyan laughed. You must have paid a heavy price to unleash that attack, right? Xian Yang's countenance was ice cold. So what if I don't kill you today? Even if you don't unleash that attack, it doesn't mean that I will spare you. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, a demonic wind ravaged the area. That destructive might abruptly gushed forth, and Qin Wentian's silhouette was like the wind, appearing before Xian Yang. The might of the immortal vanquishing swordplay was infused into the demon sword, and as its sharp claws slashed downwards, the demon sword transformed into a fearsome great rock, emitting a terrifying sword keening as millions upon millions of sword chi gushed forth, gushing towards Xian Yang. He actually took the initiative to attack. Everyone's countenances were filled with shock. Xian Yang initially wanted to stop, temporarily giving up on Xian Xing. However, Qin Wenyan didn't spare him, and chose to unleash a destructive attack instead. Xian Yang howled in rage, his long spear pierced through the air as countless ancient mirrors appeared. This spear strike of his manifested a tempest of slaughter, capable of destroying the heavens. Boom! The two forces collided, and in an instant, the destructive tempest engulfed the battlefield. The spectators only saw a beam of light piercing through the skies as the destructive astral wind slammed into their bodies. The spectators all retreated with explosive speed, but even the aftershocks from the collision were too much for them to bear. Another thunderous boom rang out, as dust rose into the air. The demon sword whistled, and when everything dissipated, the spectators only saw a deep crater that was riddled with holes. Two silhouettes could be seen lying on the ground, and these two silhouettes were none other than Qin Wenyan, who had reverted to his original appearance. Right now, he was lying on the ground, unable to move. His aura was extremely weak, and he no longer exuded the tyrannical aura he exuded earlier. Xian Yang naturally wasn't in a good state either. He was also lying on the ground, soaked in blood, and there were sword scars all over his body. Both sides were heavily injured in this clash. Their attacks had far surpassed the limits of their opponent's endurance. Just the destructive shockwaves alone were sufficient to heavily injure them. Not only that, Qin Wenyan had to pay the price of immolating his body in order to use the immortal vanquishing swordplay. In truth, his attack was a level higher than Qin Wentian's, and he wasn't injured at all. But even so, the burden on his body was already too great. What an intense battle! It has been a very long time since there was such a battle in the city of ancient emperors. The spectators were all speechless. The main characters of this battle, the number 4, number 5 and number 6 rankers on the Immortal Ascension rankings had all participated in it. And in the end, the number 6 ranker, Xiao Lingyue, was injured, and even the immortal sense of her father, the Shao Emperor, had appeared. The number 4 ranker of the Immortal Ascension rankings, Xian Yang, was heavily injured by Qin Wenyan. As for his younger brother, the number 27 ranker of the Immortal Ascension rankings, Xian Xing, was killed by Qin Wenyan. Such a storm hadn't occurred in the city of ancient emperors for a very long time. This time around, it was triggered by the appearance of the god's hand. No wonder he was so fearless. If it wasn't for Xian Yang and Xian Xing standing in front of him, the Shao sect would have to pay an extremely heavy price if they tried to seize the god's hand. The geniuses of the Shao sect stared at the figure of Qin Wenyan lying on the ground as their hearts trembled violently. Even for Greedwolf, his heart was filled with complex emotions. This battle didn't only involve Qin Wenyan. Chongqing the Great's daughter, Princess Qing, was also implicated. Not only that, Qin Wenyan had defeated the woman he admired, Xiao Lingyue. Only to see that at this moment, Qing had already arrived beside Qin Wenyan. She didn't say anything and directly carried Qin Wenyan in her arms. Coldly glancing at Xian Yang, a powerful spatial energy enveloped her as her silhouette flickered, directly appearing in the air. After which, she transformed into a series of afterimages as she sped off into the distance. In this world, if one were to say who understood Qin Wenyan the most, there was no doubt that the person would be Qing. She was too familiar with Qin Wenyan, even more familiar than she was with herself. From the time when he was young in Chu, to the time when Qin Wenyan grew up step by step, she had always been by his side, silently observing him. Other than Qin Wentian's experiences in the immortal realms, she knew everything about Qin Wentian's particle world, including what sort of energy Qin Wenyan cultivated. She naturally knew that Qin Wenyan was extremely weak now. Back then when Qin Wenyan used the immortal vanquishing swordplay, it was she who took care of Qin Wenyan until he recovered. This time around, she had no idea how long Qin Wenyan would need to recuperate. Qin was very clear that unless there was no other choice, Qin Wenyan wouldn't transform into a great rock and use the immortal vanquishing swordplay. During these years, Qin Wenyan had only used it twice. The first time was in the Pill Emperor Hall, to save Mo Qingqing. The second time was when he was in Grand Xia, facing the threat of several celestial phenomenon ascendants from the Chun clan as well as experts from the Pill Emperor Hall. This was the third time. Hence, Qing's heart was filled with rage. This was especially so when she saw Shaolin Yue's sneak attacking Qin Wenyan. Hence, her killing intent was ignited, not hesitating to kill the daughter of the Shao Emperor. However, at this moment, the only thing Qin was thinking about was Qin Wentian's injuries. She didn't care about anyone else and directly brought Qin Wenyan away. Qin Wenyan was the only person in her eyes. Senior brother. Jun Mingchen and Zi Qingxian froze. After which, Zi Qingxian transmitted her voice to Jun Mingchen. Princess Qin will take care of senior brother Qin. Let's go. Jun Mingchen also knew that it wasn't wise to stay in this place for too long. Hence, he and Zi Qingxian silently left the area. Regardless of the Shao sect or the Twin Stars Alliance, none of them paid any attention to them. Everyone was still immersed in that battle. Let's go. There's a high possibility that Princess Qing and Qin Wenyan are lovers. Someone sighed. This scene caused many geniuses to feel envy and jealousy. From the looks of it, the possibility of them being lovers was the highest. To be able to have such a beautiful and talented woman as a wife, it was truly a joyous thing in life. However, it's rumored that the Chongqing the Great regards this daughter of his the most and is nurturing her as his successor. If Qin Wenyan wants to marry Princess Qin, I'm afraid it won't be so easy. His talent is also extremely terrifying. Today's battle has already proven it. Not only that, he even obtained the god's hand. If his background is also compatible with Qing Er's, the evergreen immortal emperor wouldn't interfere too much. Don't think too much. Qin Wenyan killed Xian Xing, leaving aside the fact that Xian Yang wouldn't spare him. The rage of the Xian emperor isn't something so easy to endure. How long can Qin Wenyan live for? Another person spoke, causing the gazes of many to turn to Xian Yang. This number 4 ranker of the Immortal Ascension rankings was also extremely sullen today. He personally witnessed his younger brother being killed, and he was even heavily injured. In the City of Ancient Emperors, this battle was especially intense. In the future, I wonder if there would still be people who would try to snatch the god's hand. But even if they do, it wouldn't be so easy. The hearts of the spectators mused. Being able to witness such a soul-stirring battle today, it could be said that this trip wasn't made in vain. Chapter 924. In the City of Ancient Emperors, Qin Wentian's name began to spread. The daughter of the Chongqing the Great, the daughter of the Shao Emperor, and the 2 sons of the Xian Emperor were embroiled in this storm. Xian Xing had also died in battle. This news soon circulated, and several days later, the Immortal Ascension rankings in the City of Ancient Emperors no longer contained Xian Xing's name. Qin Wentian's name appeared on the Immortal Ascension rankings. His exact ranking was 100th. There were some who felt that Qin Wentian's ranking was too low. After all, he had personally killed the 27th ranked Xian Xing, and he didn't even have the aid of an immortal ranked weapon. Similarly, there were some who felt that Qin Wentian's ranking was too high. He was only at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon and only used some secret arts to increase his strength by leaps and bounds. This wasn't the strength he should have under normal circumstances, and there would definitely be side effects. These descendants of immortal kings and emperors all understood that this method of breaking the rules of cultivation and allowing stellar martial cultivators to jump levels would definitely have its limitations. Qin Wenyan might have to pay a price for this. As for Qin Wentian's true combat prowess, he was still unable to familiarize himself with God's hand at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon. This was why he wasn't able to condense God's hand a second time after being shattered by the Xian Emperor. His strength was also unstable, and even if he borrowed the aid of God's hand, he would only be ranked around 100th. With regards to Qin Wentian's ranking on the Immortal Ascension rankings, there were many voices of dispute. Qin Wentian seemed to be different from the other geniuses. Most probably, even the person who set the rankings didn't know what to do with him. Hence, he was only ranked 100th and there would definitely be changes in the future. However, Qin Wentian himself had no time to care about this. In fact, he didn't even know anything about it. In the city of ancient emperors, there was a mountain range that stretched on endlessly. It was incomparably mysterious, and for those who entered the city of ancient emperors, no one dared to say that they had explored the entire place. In the past, there were many geniuses who ventured into the depths of the mountain range, yet they all vanished without a trace. At this moment, on a certain mountain peak, there was a quiet place with steep cliffs and a waterfall. It was like an otherworldly place, free of all worldly disturbances. Surrounded by green peaks, there was a simple house. Outside the house were jagged rocks of strange shapes, and a cool breeze blew gently on the body. On top of a huge boulder, a beautiful figure could be seen calmly sitting there, quietly cultivating. She was like a fairy from a painting, mesmerizing people. After a while, the figure slowly stood up and turned around, looking at the person who was peacefully sleeping on the ground. This beautiful figure was naturally none other than Qin. As for the unconscious man, he was none other than Qin Wentian. Qing'er walked to the side of Qin Wentian and squatted down. She stared at his serene countenance, handsome and natural, as though he was completely at ease. It was as though after that strike, he wasn't worried at all that something unexpected would happen. It was as though he knew that there would definitely be someone who would bring him away safely. The cold expression on Qing'er's face gradually softened, as the coldness on her face vanished. A light breeze gusted by, causing her black hair to flutter, brushing past Qin Wentian's face. As she stared at him, many memories of the past flashed in Qing'er's eyes. In her eyes, a rarely seen warm smile actually appeared, exuding a sense of beauty. "Thank you for finding me so quickly." Qing'er's melodious voice resounded. After that, she slowly stretched out her hand. She was somewhat hesitant, but her soft and slender fingers were still moving towards Qin Wentian's face, gently caressing his gentle face. Her smile became even more beautiful and radiant. "Last time, you slept for so long. I wonder how long it will take for you to wake up this time," Qing'er said softly. But at this moment, a pair of clear and bright eyes suddenly opened. Qing'er's fingers trembled slightly, stopping on Qin Wentian's face. The smile on her face also stiffened. As though she suddenly regained her senses, Qing'er retracted her finger from Qin Wentian's face with lightning speed. She instantly stood up, and her expression returned to that icy cold one. Her clear voice rang out, "You're awake." "Qing'er, what are you doing?" A trace of a smile flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes. He stared at the stunning silhouette. His smiling gaze made Qing'er a little nervous. She said, "Checking to see if you're feeling better." As she spoke, she turned around and walked forward. Her back was facing Qin Wentian, as though she didn't dare to look into Qin Wentian's eyes. A strange expression flashed in her beautiful eyes. Her face was also slightly red. But in an instant, she returned to normal, as though nothing had happened. "Qing'er." A voice resounded from behind. Qing'er turned around. Her beautiful eyes no longer showed any abnormalities. However, Qin Wentian didn't say anything. He merely stared at her quietly. The smile in his eyes was as clear as ever. Qing'er noticed that Qin Wentian was staring at her silently. She wanted to turn around, but she only heard Qin Wentian speaking in a low voice. "Qing'er, it wasn't easy to find you. Let me take a few more glances at you." Qing'er turned her gaze onto Qin Wentian. No one could tell what she was thinking from her clear eyes. After that, she spoke in a melodious voice, "Rest well and get well soon." After speaking, she turned and walked back to the gigantic boulder she was on earlier, standing there quietly. Qin Wentian stared at her back as a warm smile appeared on his face. After a long time, he slowly closed his eyes as he circulated the energy in his body. His body felt as though it had been sucked dry. The consumption of energy in that battle back then was simply too terrifying. First, he used God's hand to fight against so many experts. After that, he transformed into a great rock and was heavily injured. Finally, he used the immortal vanquishing swordplay and used the Black Punisher star to injure Xianyang. After injuring Xianyang, all the energy in his body was completely depleted. Luckily, his cultivation base was now higher and his self-recovery ability was stronger. In addition, as his cultivation base increased, the amplification of the immortal vanquishing swordplay might have decreased, but at the same time, the side effects were also lessened. It wasn't as terrifying as before. Time slowly flowed by. Qin Wenyan quietly recovered from his injuries with Qing'er by his side. Right now, Qin Wenyan could already move freely. At this moment he was sitting on a gigantic boulder, cultivating. He had already been sitting there for 10 days and had yet to open his eyes. At this moment, Qin Wenyan's eyes finally opened. There was no sharpness in them, only tranquility and tranquility. The rays of the setting sun shone down, illuminating the entire mountain range with a layer of multicolored light. It was an extremely beautiful sight, and the sound of splashing water could be heard from the waterfall on the opposite side. A peerlessly beautiful figure walked out from the waterfall. Her long black hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall, dripping wet. She was clad in a thin green robe that accentuated her curves perfectly. Under the illumination of the multicolored light, she exuded a saintly beauty, causing Qin Wenyan to be somewhat mesmerized by her beauty. Qing'er also discovered Qin Wenyan. When she walked over, she saw Qin Wenyan's dumbfounded expression. Cold, she stared at Qin Wenyan as a peculiar light flickered in her beautiful eyes. After that, she walked past Qin Wenyan and walked towards the small house, leaving behind a refreshing fragrance. What a beautiful scenery! Qin Wenyan murmured. A cold wind brushed past. Qin Wenyan turned his head and saw Qing'er's silhouette standing there, glaring at him. Qing'er, you look so beautiful even when you're angry. Qin Wenyan stretched his waist as he joked. His skin was truly thick. Could it be that Qing'er would make a move against him? Shameless. Qing'er spat out 2 words, but in the eyes of Qin Wenyan, it was extremely pleasing to the ears. Smiling at Qing'er, Qin Wenyan casually replied, Qing'er, if you can be like this for the rest of your life, it would be a beautiful thing in the world. Where's Qingqing? Qing'er's cold voice rang out, causing Qin Wenyan to be stunned. He stared at Qing'er in astonishment. He didn't expect that Qing'er would actually say Qingqing's name at this moment. Seeing the expression on Qin Wenyan's face, Qing'er lowered her head and fell into silence. Qin Wenyan drew in a deep breath. He stared at Qing'er's expression as he gently spoke. Qing'er, I can't let Qingqing down, but I won't let you down either. It was rare for Qin Wenyan to express his attitude so straightforwardly. He knew that it was time for him to make a promise to Qing'er. Earlier, Qin Wenyan told Qing'er that if she could be like this for the rest of her life, it would be a beautiful thing in the world. The first thing Qing'er mentioned was Qingqing. From this, it could be seen that in Qing'er's heart, she had already regarded Qin Wenyan as her lover. Otherwise, not only did she not refute him, she even mentioned Qingqing. Clearly, in Qing'er's heart, she had always been thinking about it. Moreover, although Qing'er didn't speak much, her every action undoubtedly indicated that she was in a relationship with Qin Wenyan. She had always been here silently taking care of him and didn't leave even half a step. Even when she went to the waterfall to take a bath, she didn't avoid Qin Wenyan when she came back. To be able to do this, Qing'er had already treated him as the closest person to her. Qin Wenyan could clearly sense the gentleness in her every action, as well as the affection behind it. Qin Wenyan's voice caused Qing'er to start. She stood there in a daze, as though surprised that Qin Wenyan would suddenly say such a thing. After which, she turned and walked back to the room as she spoke in a low voice. You better increase your strength as soon as possible. Qingqing should have already waited for you for many years. After speaking, Qing'er stepped into the room and didn't come out again. Qin Wenyan stared at the room as a bitter smile appeared on his face. Qing'er was still the same. However, was this an agreement or an agreement? Or was it a tacit agreement? Boo! Drawing in a deep breath, Qin Wenyan stared at the sky. This time around, he did his best to raise his cultivation base to the 8th level of celestial phenomenon. However, how long more would he need to reach the immortal realm? Was Qingqing still doing well? In the room, Qing'er quietly lay there, staring at the ceiling in a daze. At this moment, her heart was pounding, and she felt a rare sense of nervousness. Only after a while did her state of mind gradually calm down. Only to see Qing'er's beautiful eyes blinking as a warm smile gradually appeared on her face. She slowly closed her eyes, and a faint blush could be seen on her face. Her beauty was so beautiful that it could move one's soul. Sadly, Qin Wenyin had no way to enjoy such a beautiful scene. Qin Wenyin took a closer look and found that there seemed to be an arched mountain there, which seemed to isolate the mountain range from the rest of the world, giving off a cold aura. That person entered the underworld mountains? Qin Wenyin murmured. Woo! Little rascal let out a low growl. Qin Wenyin stared at him and asked, Little rascal, what's wrong? Summoning, I can feel the aura of a summoning. Little rascal's voice was filled with a solemn tone, causing Qin Wentian's expression to stiffen. Little rascal could feel the aura of a summoning? Let's go in and take a look, Qin Wenyan spoke. After which, he turned to Qing. Go back and wait for me. Qing cast a cold glance at Qin Wenyan. Upon seeing her gaze, Qin Wenyan smiled. Let's go in together then. Be careful. As the sound of his voice faded, little rascal directly dashed out. Qin Wenyan and Qing followed closely behind. It's rumored that the underworld mountains are also a ruin left behind by an ancient emperor. However, this ancient emperor was extremely ruthless. Up till now, many geniuses have died in the underworld mountains, but nobody knows which ancient emperor he was. Yet, there are still people who dare to enter the underworld mountains, Qin explained, as though reminding Qin Wenyin. After entering the underworld mountains, there seemed to be only a single passageway. The air was filled with a cold and gloomy aura, causing people to feel somewhat cold. Little rascal's speed slowed down. Its body was trembling slightly, as though it was filled with fear. This was the first time Qin Wendian saw little rascal in such a state. He could feel the summoning aura, but he was also extremely afraid. What kind of power was this summoning? A woo! A low growl rang out from little rascal's mouth. Its body abruptly sprinted forward, rushing towards a canyon ahead. Little rascal! Qin Wenyan could sense the nervousness and impulsiveness in little rascal's heart. There was an indescribable force guiding it. It's very dangerous inside, Qin reminded when she saw Qin Wenyan following behind. Qin, you go back first, Qin Wenyan spoke again, his countenance turning solemn. Since the underworld mountains were known as the forbidden grounds of the city of ancient emperors, there would definitely be an intense danger. However, he couldn't ignore little rascal, nor could he place Qin in danger. My spatial abilities can bring you away at critical moments. Also, my body is protected by my immortal sense. Qin stared at Qin Wenyan, shaking her head. Given Qin's personality, it was impossible for Qin Wenyan to persuade her. Fine. Once you encounter danger, you have to leave immediately, Qin Wenyan solemnly instructed. Okay. Qin nodded her head. After which, Qin Wenyan sped ahead. He could sense little rascal's location. Very swiftly, they passed through the canyon. There were many strange-looking ancient mountains here, each of them so tall that they touched the heavens. An extremely cold aura permeated the air. Little rascal! Qin Wendian continued forward. Inclining his head, he stared at the peak of a lonely mountain, only to see the silhouette of little rascal standing there. The night sky gradually darkened, and the silhouette of little rascal resembled a lone wolf as it surveyed its surroundings. Busy, a gust of wind gusted by. On another mountain, a white-robed figure appeared. Qin Wenyan stared at this figure. It was none other than the mysterious woman he met before. Fog suddenly rose up from the mountain range, rising unceasingly, enveloping the entire sky. What's going on? Qin Wenyin discovered that even with his powerful eyesight, his vision was greatly obstructed. The entire area seemed to be enveloped by a mysterious black fog. An instant later, when the fog gradually dissipated, Qin Wentian's countenance drastically changed. The scenery in this space had completely changed. Although there were still ancient mountains, they were even darker. Furthermore, the ancient mountains were no longer the same as before. It was as if they had entered a different space in an instant, and they clearly hadn't moved at all. Underworld mountains, Qing whispered. Is this the true underworld mountains? Qin Wendian murmured. It seemed that although Qing knew that the underworld mountains were a forbidden ground in the city of ancient emperors, she didn't know much about it. When night fell, the true underworld mountains would appear in this mountain range. At this moment, Qin Wendian stared at the foot of the mountain range, and his expression froze. After which, he surveyed the underworld mountains and discovered many corpses. The coldness in the air grew colder and colder, as though there was a unique energy present. Qin Wentian's aura began to dissipate, as though it was being stripped away from his body bit by bit. What's going on? Qin Wendian stretched out his hands. The underworld mountains were actually able to forcefully strip away the energy in one's body. He glanced at Qing, only to discover that Qing had also sensed it. Awoo! Little rascal let out another long howl. Its body expanded in size, and it was actually able to devour the energy in the air, unaffected by it. Little rascal! Qin Wendian stared at Little Rascal. At this instant, the white-robed figure abruptly flickered, directly appearing in front of Little Rascal. Qin Wentian's countenance changed as he sped towards the white-robed figure. Sir, who are you? Qin Wendian icily asked. The white-robed figure inclined her head and stared at him. Qin Wendian saw a face so beautiful that it was suffocating. This kind of demonic beauty didn't have the slightest hint of charm. Her eyes were devoid of emotions, yet they contained a terrifying might, as though she was a peak-level expert. There was no aura emanating from her, as though she wasn't a living person at all. Similarly, she wasn't affected by the underworld mountains. Since she had no aura, her energy naturally wouldn't be drained away. Are you a human or a ghost? This was the first time Qin Wendian encountered such an existence. An existence that had no aura, no matter how strong one was. Even if it was the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, although he didn't release his aura, the aura of a human would still exist. Qin Wendian stood in front of her. If he didn't see her with his own eyes, he wouldn't even be able to sense her existence. The gaze of the female shifted away, landing on Little Rascal once more. After which, she directly walked towards Little Rascal's body. A scene that caused Qin Wendian to be horrified appeared. Her body didn't seem corporeal. She actually wanted to fuse with Little Rascal's body. Roar! Little Rascal let out howls of agony as his body struggled violently. Scram! Qin Wendian took out his immortal-ranked long spear and directly pierced towards the female's body. However, the long spear directly penetrated through the body of the mysterious female. There was no effect at all. Spectre! Qin Wentian's countenance grew unsightly. Little Rascal continued howling as his body trembled even more violently. Boom! All the energy in Little Rascal's body erupted forth in an instant. The silhouette of the female trembled violently as though she was in a state of discomfort. He's afraid of the flames of your bloodline. Little Rascal shouted. The blood in Qin Wentian's body surged as his entire body glowed with a terrifying white flame. He pointed his finger at Little Rascal, and a raging wind gusted by. That ghost-like figure directly separated from Little Rascal's body as she coldly stared at Qin Wendian. Little Rascal had always been raised by Qin Wendian using his bloodline. There was also a trace of Qin Wentian's bloodline power in his body. Earlier, when he unleashed his full strength, he discovered that this mysterious female was afraid of his bloodline power. That female coldly stared at Qin Wendian, after which she abruptly moved towards Qing's body. In just an instant, it felt as though her body was about to fuse together with Qing's. Qin Wentian's countenance drastically changed. He pointed his finger out once more, only to see that figure reappearing again. She stood in front of them, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.